the more the merrier if other folks join. So good evening. Thank you for joining the September 27th meeting of the Littleton Conservation Commission. We're going to get the meeting started since it's 7:30. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from August 13th, 2021. Sorry, August 23rd, 2021. Does anyone have any omissions or corrections to the minutes? Thought they looked okay. Okay. All right, next we'll go to the September 13th, 2021 minutes. Does anyone have any comments or edits to those minutes? I thought those minutes looked good as well. Okay, and then the final ones are the executive session from the December 14th, 2020 executive session. And seeing as how the subject discussed is still kind of ongoing litigation, I was thinking we should hold those minutes still. I wasn't sure we should release those yet. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts.
That's fine. It just occurred to me they were sitting there, but we can hold off.
Okay. Yeah. That's my feedback on that. I don't know if anybody had any other opinions. Okay. Okay. Well, if there's no discussion, I would entertain a motion for the August 23rd and September 13th minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from August 23rd and September 13th, 2021.
Second.
Okay, Andrew seconded. Andrew, you want to do roll call? It's going to be,
Sure.
Oh, Carl's here too.
There's Carl.
Greetings.
Hey, Carl.
Hello, Julie.
We're just voting on the minutes for August 23rd and September 13th.
Okay.
Do you want to do a roll call, Andrew?
Certainly. All right. So we've got Brian.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Kyle.
So I wasn't there for the 23rd meeting. It's kind of why I didn't speak up with the meeting. So I would definitely vote to approve the September meetings, but I was not there for the 23rd. So just a caveat with my vote, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Julie.
Julie Rupp, aye.
And myself, I. And Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
All right. It's unanimous with one abstention for the 23rd, right? Of August.
Okay.
Andrew, you're very quiet.
Am I very quiet?
Can't hear you very well.
Not too bad. Oh, maybe a little quiet. Oh, hey, Chase. All right. So we just approved the minutes. We're going to move on to the administrative discussion, the land use permit for the tree hunt. So who's here for this? Oh, Amy, you're on mute.
My screen is yelling at me. You're on mute. Yes, I don't think anyone's here. I told them I was going to push this through because they're getting a little up against it. It's the same as always. They may change around which open spaces they put on the list, but it's the same deal as always, starting and ending, and everybody who sponsors a tree needs to get it out of there by, I think it's January 1st or something. They attached Conservation Commission land regulations to it, and it's the same successful program, just grown a little bit.
Yeah, I think the tree hunt is really well received and people really enjoy it and gets folks out in the winter. I do wonder if we can, I think one of the first year we approved it, we requested, not using like the plastic garland, and I've noticed that is creeping in a little bit. It's kind of degrading, gets degraded and kind of floats out there into the environment. So I'm just wondering if we could maybe just have a friendly request,
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can remind them.
minimize that. Yeah, that would be awesome. But other than that, I think it's a really well-received program. I don't know if any other commissioners had feedback they wanted to share or any discussion.
It's a great program, and it certainly gets people out on the trails. So I would fully support issuing another land use permit for it.
Yep, I agree, especially over the last winter. It grew immensely. There were a lot of people out on the trails just for the tree hunt itself. So it's great.
Sorry, I might have missed the beginning because I had to get something to drink. Were we talking about our own tree? Conservation?
What about the land use permit for the whole tree hunt? We hadn't discussed whether or not you guys want to try to sponsor a tree or something.
I just heard Julie say, resisting plastic garlands, which I heartily support. Yeah, okay. So when we start talking about our own tree, I have some thoughts, but we aren't there yet, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think step one, right, is to approve the land use permit and then talk to the coordinators. Or Amy, are you in contact with the coordinators? Is that how that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Okay. Do we need to vote on this? Yeah, we do.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
And then Julie, you'll need to sign it when I get it.
Yep. Okay. So I'd entertain a motion if there's no further discussion.
I'll make a motion, the Conservation Commission approves a land use permit for the annual town tree hunt.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Matsfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
and myself, aye. It's unanimous.
All right, great. All right, next, continued request for certificate of compliance, 27 Fort Pond Hill, DEP file number 204-882.
I think Brandon is here.
Okay.
I'll just give a quick rundown. If you have any questions, you can ask him. This has been going on for a while, just taking a long time basically for grass to grow at this point, but the grass has grown. So we have an as-built for it. It was done as permitted and it is stabilized. So I think it is ready for a certificate of compliance.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right. If there aren't questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to issue a certificate of compliance for 27 Fort Pond Hill, Mass DEP number 204-882.
Do you have a second?
Second,
Roll call. Carl.
Carl, you're muted.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Matsfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
and myself, aye. It's unanimous.
All right. Next item, 204 and 206 Foster Street property transfer.
Yeah, I didn't, we had discussions of this a while ago and there was basically a consensus among the commission that it was a good thing to ask for the land to be transferred to the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. But in the last meeting, I thought it was going to get bumped to spring town meeting. And since it was running so late, I didn't ask for a vote. But now it is back on for fall town meeting. So if you're amenable, I need a vote to support the transfer of the land to Conservation Commission.
Okay.
Amy, do I need to peel off and go chat with the select board tonight? Did you ever hear from Joe? I never heard back.
That's why I keep looking. I never heard back. And actually, when they last met 2 weeks ago, they actually ended up saying just ahead of time, nobody needs to go. So thank you for nobody showing up to that one. So
Sorry about that. I was queued up to show up and then something came up. So.
Yeah, unless Joe sends us an email suddenly, because he had to give you a whole separate Zoom information for them.
Wait, so I'm confused. So we still need to meet?
No, that's whether or not the select board wanted Chase to jump in to talk about it as well.
I see. Okay, got it.
But I do still need the supporting vote if so moved or whatever.
Okay.
Move then, Julie, if you're ready, unless there's more discussion. Sorry, I was about to throw a motion your way, but.
Yeah. Anyone
Go
want
for
to, any discussion? Okay. I know we've discussed it before.
Move then that the Conservation Commission support the article at town meeting for the transfer of 204 and 206 Foster Street to the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission.
Second.
All right, roll call. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerber guy.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
and myself, aye. It's unanimous.
2 more minutes. Okay. Next item on the administrative discussion, agricultural working group representative, parentheses 2.
Yeah, the Conservation Commission hopefully needs to elect or vote in 2 members to be representatives on that working group. Before it was Andrew and Jim, and since Jim has stepped down, if Andrew's still willing to stay on there, somebody else might be interested in it. Or if not, you can vote somebody to be interested in it.
Amy, does that have to be a member of the Conservation Commission, or can we?
I double checked. It does have to be a commissioner.
Okay. So we can't just appoint Jim to it.
That's exactly why I asked if maybe Jim could become an associate, and then we put him right back on. So no, I tried that. But I also made sure that we got credit for Andrew being on the board, not one of the other boards. So if, I don't know, Andrew, if you want to give a quick little spiel about how big a burden is or what you guys do, or.
So the last time around with that committee, we did a lot of work with regard to the orchard, developing an RFP and other stuff to get the word out. The town was going to be looking for applicants to lease the property. And it sounds like not a lot was done in response to that. And right now the orchard's kind of up in the air. The town, from what I've heard, isn't going to have somebody to lease it. And so I guess this group is being assembled to work through it and figure out what's the town should do with the property, in terms of a lease or.
It's his computer, not ours.
So is the lease currently up on that, Andrew?
From what I've heard, I believe so.
Because my wife went by there and she just said it didn't look like it was being managed right now.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it's everything is just up in the air right now. It's not actively being managed.
I thought they were working on a lease. Was that not the case, or is that fell through?
I really don't have
Yeah, that's okay.
together yet, but from what I've
Yep.
heard, like I said, we had worked on an RFP process before on that committee, and I don't know what happened with it. But it sounds like the town needs to come up with something to make sure that it stays active and under control.
Yeah, and all I know is the select board has been having some executive sessions on the subject. But I don't know where it stands either for the orchard part of it. Which I think, Andrew, is that pretty much the main thrust of the working group was the orchard.
Yeah, basically.
Can an associate be on it? No, probably not.
Yeah, no,
No.
I tried that with Jim too, but no. Bring Jim back as an associate.
What if we did 2 associates and they count as 1 person?
There you go.
I'd be interested in actively pursuing an organic grower instead of one that sprays all the time. Yeah.
Keep serving, Andrew. Let's start there.
I'd be willing to if the board would like me to, unless somebody else is eager to get on, but whatever the board would like to do.
Do we have to send 2 people, or can we just have 1 rep? I mean, what's the difference, really? Are they votes, or are they just representative? If it's just a representative, I'm happy with Andrew.
It needs 2 from the Conservation Commission. And I forget what the make of it. It's 2 from Concom, 2 from Agriculture, and then 2 from Select Board. And I think there's at least 1 other. I forget what the makeup was.
I was asking, is it a voting thing that the reason they have the equal numbers from?
Well, I would imagine if you're working on the RFP, for example, you might vote to recommend the language to the select board, but it's the select board who would do any of the negotiations and the final approval.
What's the time commitment and meeting frequency, Andrew? Just trying to gauge my current schedule.
The last time around, I believe it wasn't terribly frequently. It was maybe once every month and a half, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a long time since the committee's been together. I don't think it's not going to be like every week. Well, maybe depending on what happens. So I'll leave it. It could be very frequently, or it could be not so frequently.
The other element of it that I think is worth mentioning is that with the, I believe the town administrator has an appointment to it, or maybe it's just overseen by the town administrator. But in any case, the group is really advisory in nature, not so much like actually crafting the RFP, but rather, hey, we want to see this, we want to see that, and then oftentimes the town administrator then takes it back to town council and actually does the drafting. So the outside of meeting time commitment is fairly low, I think. Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah, it's not a terrible burden. Like Chase said, it's a lot of advisory stuff with regard to putting together the RFP, any other ideas when it comes to managing the land in the future. And so it's an important committee, but ultimately it's the selectmen that or the select board rather, that make the decisions.
And I will say, I'm looking at on the webpage right now. It's Paul Glavey, Andrew, Anthony Ansaldi, Cindy Napoli, and Will Pickard are the 5 that are on it now. And I don't know if you're way behind on the minutes, but there's not a lot of meeting minutes. They're pretty spaced out.
Is the land currently under the select board?
Yes.
Okay.
With the agricultural preservation restriction on top of it.
Yeah.
I would gladly throw my hat in the ring if nobody else is wanting to step up.
I would be supportive of Kyle and Andrew.
Second,
I don't think I can make a motion.
I'll move to appoint them, Andrew and Kyle. There, now you can second.
second.
All right, roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase,
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
and myself. It's unanimous.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
All right. We're a little late opening the continued public hearing request for amended order of conditions, Sudbury Valley Trustees, Smith Property, 199 Whitcomb Avenue, Mass DEP file number 204-920. And I think I see Laura.
Yes. Hi, I'm Laura Matei. I'm the Director of Stewardship with Sudbury Valley Trustees. I'm joined this evening by Lisa Vernegard, our Executive Director, and Karen Paquin, the President of our board. Amy, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Please.
So I think it's important for us all to remember that we do share common goals in terms of our interest and dedication to protecting human and environmental health and promoting the reestablishment of native plants, native pollinators, other native insects and birds at the Smith Conservation Land. And that is very powerful that we do share those goals. SVT was very appreciative of the neighbors who asked us to take a pause 2 years ago and really look at alternatives and look at the science, which we have done very thoroughly. And we are confident that the proposed route forward is a sound approach that will in fact protect human and environmental health as we restore the natural ecosystems. Excuse me, I need to do that. Okay. So why are we requesting this amendment at this time? We were able to complete a site-specific risk assessment that was prepared by a professional risk assessor. And I think that was very helpful in answering a lot of the questions that the commission had last fall, as well as the neighbors' concerns, especially I think with the drinking water supplies and the wells. Secondly, the feasibility of mechanical only techniques was something we were able to start working on this past year. And really take a look at the time issues, particular with the bittersweet root extraction technique, which at the current going rate will be 100 person hours per acre. We're hoping to improve on that. But the main point, it is very time consuming and very meticulous. We also encountered some safety issues with poison ivy, of which there is a lot, as well as deer ticks. So there's direct safety, health issues to humans who are our staff and volunteers at the site. And we did in fact have some issues with people, even though, you know, they were trying to do the right thing, getting bad cases of poison ivy, as well as someone who had a bad case of Lyme disease and had to quit his position. And finally, the commission's recognition of the use of herbicide as an acceptable tool. I'm aware that the commission has approved the use of herbicides at a few sites in Littleton in the wetland resource area, and SVT is not proposing to use them in the wetland resource area, only in some of the buffer zones. Some of the commissioners and some of the stakeholders and neighbors were able to join me on a site visit this summer. They were able to see, we were joined by a specialist from Mass Wildlife from the Heritage Program, who was able to demonstrate how the backpack sprayer works. I was able to show folks where we're doing the mechanical control and the root extraction. And also it was important to, make sure that people really could see the magnitude of the problem, because It is quite a bit of bittersweet, or quite a large area that we're dealing with. And SVT wants to ensure that we do have our best chance at success. So what is the proposal? I am focusing on what we're doing in the wetland jurisdictional areas. So phase 1, that's the first year, would be management units 1 and 2. And so just to remind everyone, because I know it's a little bit confusing. So unit 1 is the red pine plantation. Unit 2 is the European tamarack plantation down here. So in year 1, and again, to point out, the wetland delineation is this light blue line. The 50-foot buffer zone is this cross-hatched area here. And then the 100-foot buffer is this brighter blue. So again, units 1 and 2, red pine and European tamarack over here. So we'd be looking at the first year fall treatment, 1.2 acres cut stump and paint herbicide. The following summer, we'd only be doing the targeted foliar backpack spraying in the 50 to 100 foot buffer zone. That's our proposal. We would continue to do hand pulling seedlings annually. The following 2 summers as needed, we do foliar spot treatments. And it's important to say that that first cut stump and paint is very effective. And the first foliar backpack spray is only on that lower growing bittersweet. And if we do any additional in the 2 summers, the amount you do drops dramatically. So it really is very controlled use. And I want to repeat that in unit 1, we are only going to be using mechanical controls. I do want to continue to pursue our efforts of the bittersweet root extraction here. And we're doing the repeated cutting in the other half of this area, but that hasn't been going so well. It's really hard to keep up with that. The bittersweet just goes crazy when you cut it. So that's a little bit more challenging, but we want to do that as kind of a way to show that over time. The second phase, oops, what happened there? Let me try this again. The second phase, I'm going to bring up that map again, is really just unit 4. This unit 5 here isn't in the wetland jurisdictional area. And I taken this area out here by the field. That's just going to be purely mechanical control efforts there. We did do clearing work over here by the border by the Ferrante residents over here. So the second phase would be in this area up here. The vernal pools are located here and here. So we're looking at, again, cut and paint in the fall. And this wouldn't happen until this, we've been through this for at least 1 year. And I'm purposefully not putting a time frame on this work over here because I want everyone to be able to see how the work goes over here. So again, though, it's cut and paint in the first fall, and then followed by the same 50 in the 50 to 100 foot buffer area. The foliar application, so it's 1.2 acres in that unit 4, followed by 0.4 acres. That's our proposal, and also our request for the amendment also asks that the additional 100-foot buffer to the vernal pools be removed and keep the regular 100-foot buffer, specifically because that is what's recommended by the wildlife biologists and the heritage program. So respecting their recommendation that is safe for protecting the frogs and salamanders and such that use those vernal pools. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I'm just looking at the vernal pool areas too, and it looks like there's some polygons that surround the vernal pools. Is that the upland area?
The, or you mean the yellow line?
No, the kind of clear, it's before the blue. Oh, is that just wetland in there?
Yeah.
For me to tell,
Yes.
but okay.
Yes, yes, that light blue is the
Vernal
wetland
wetland.
delineation.
And then,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Mhm.
So just a reminder, we will be discussing this matter as it pertains to the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And I'll open it to commissioners discussion first, any discussion or questions that commissioners want to have, and then I'll open it to the public for comments and questions. So do any commissioners have any questions or comments, or want to reiterate your thoughts from, the prior hearing?
No, but I wanted to bring up the letter that we got. And I was just trying to find it on my phone, like who it was by, but you just sent it out a day or so ago, Amy. Is that right? Oh, you're muted.
The one I sent around, I just got it maybe a couple hours ago from Kendra.
Yes.
Yeah, that just came in this evening.
Okay, so she was mentioning about the fact that she raises bees, and she was just wanting to make sure that, well, she had other concerns too, but she wanted to make sure that there's enough of a buffer between her bees and any application. And I didn't know what property she was at.
She is over here. So this circle here is her water well. Her house is right under that. And they own this property here and this property over here.
Okay.
And right now we have a 50-foot buffer zone around them. But if there are any additional regulations for high buffers, those would be adhered to.
I would note there, though, that her concern is not really, it's not really within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, given how far away the actual resource areas are. In other words, there's a lot of area between the resource areas and that private property in which these herbicides can be utilized that we have no say over.
Right. She had concerns about the whole entire thing, but and that. So, yeah.
I mean, at the risk of drawing this out, and I would really refer folks to the comments that I made the first time that we heard this, or second time or whatever, the night that we voted on it, and then have since withdrawn that. I find this to be a perfectly reasonable approach.
I agree, Chase. I agree. I mean, I take her, I hear her, what she's saying, that we don't know, as we did with Roundup, we don't know in the future what might come up. But I also think that the damage from these invasives is severe, and it's a balance, and the plan, I believe also the plan is reasonable.
This is Carl. I agree.
So I would just repeat, what I said at the last hearing, which is there's a long history of chemical use for plant control, and, some of that is borne out now. We're paying the price for the lead arsenate that was used on apple orchards, and then that was replaced with DDT, which we're also now cleaning up. I don't know if I've been hearing commercials about paraquat, which is a common herbicide that was used in agriculture. And so now there's a class action lawsuit about that. I do think in general, what we're using now is, we know more, and I know, a risk assessment was completed for the trichopier. So I think in general, I think we are scrutinizing a lot more the herbicide usage, on projects that come to us. But I do recognize that, as referenced by Laura earlier, we have approved herbicides on other properties, and it is because invasives have, really taken over. And, I think in this case, we do need to bring out more tools from the toolbox, to get this site under control. Losing a canopy of hardwoods or tamarack or other species, I think would be far worse than, the temporary. I mean, the intent here is temporary usage, and I would expect, the commission and SVT to work together to minimize as much as possible, the use of herbicides. And I do think SVT has done a lot of diligence in looking into approaches and exactly what they're doing. And they have, a comparison area in area 1. So I do think, I very much see the commitment that SVT has to being, responsible steward of the land and using the herbicides as sparingly as possible. So for me, the bar for me is that we don't really have another good choice here. Using mechanical only or cutting only, it's just clear that that's not going to work here. And the more we let it go, I mean, you can see the carpet of bittersweet just in the couple of photos that Laura showed, the carpet of bittersweet climbing the canopy. And I just think we need more tools in the toolbox to deal with that. So for that reason, that I was, reluctantly supportive, of the use of herbicides, because again, I don't like having to apply, chemicals to our environment, and I think we should do it sparingly. But I think we need that tool in this case. So I don't know if any other commissioners had any discussion or questions. If not, we can open it to the public. Okay. All right, I'll just go in the order that's on my screen. Christine Nordhaus, please state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, Christine Nordhaus, Star Hill. I'm commenting tonight on behalf of Littleton Conservation Trust. I'm just going to read into the record a letter that the trustees sent to you, to the CONSCOM for, at an earlier meeting. So as the holder of the conservation restriction on the Smith property and a driving force behind its preservation, the Littleton Conservation Trust stands behind SVT's efforts to restore health to the land while respecting the concerns of the neighbors. Sudbury Valley Trustees, the property owner, has done a good job in exploring alternative approaches and addressing concerns. We have full faith in the science presented and hope to move forward with the commission to educate people here in town about invasive species and their control, and expand control efforts on our own lands. SVT's hopes for non-chemical controls have led to discoveries that merit the approval of an amended management plan, which we fully support. Thank you. And that's signed by every trustee.
Okay, thank you, Christine. All right, going down the list, Robert Stevens, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Robert Stevens with my wife Carolyn. We live at 28 Moore Lane, which is right around the corner from the land. Our land abuts it. Not the particular part on the other side of Whitcomb Avenue, but by the Littleton Conservation Land that's behind us. First thing is, if you think Oriental bittersweet is even remotely under control, you haven't driven around here, and it never will be. We have it every place, all up and down Whitcomb Avenue and probably throughout the town. So don't think that it is going to get even slightly under control. Everything I've been reading about chemical applications to the soil, and it goes back 50 years or more, is there's a lot of unknowns and unknown unknowns that happen as this kind of chemicals percolate into the soil and get absorbed up through the food chain, and they are cumulative. You may think it's not damaging this organism, but when that organism gets moved up the food chain, it gets cumulative because bodies, either ours or anybody else, don't get rid of these man-made chemicals. They just accumulate over time. So I'm dead set against any chemical use here, especially. It's not like we're getting more food from it. It's not like we're getting rid of triple E from it. It's not. All we're doing this is for cosmetic reasons to get the land back into some shape that we think we want to have it back in some idyllic past. So I'm dead set against any chemical use here. So
I echo what my husband just said, and the fact, and bittersweet is everywhere. And if you eliminate it in one patch of land, all you need is a bird who's eaten some of the berries off the bittersweet to go fly over the land, drop seeds, and you're back at it again. The thought that you're going to be only applying these chemical applications for 1 or 2 years is a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. You have to do it every year. And every time you apply it to the ground, it goes into the ground, goes into the water, goes into the whole environmental system, and doesn't go away. You have an animal that eats the plants or whatever, and it just continues to be there. If it's in the water, it's in the wetlands, it's in the wells, and then we consume that in our bodies. And so exactly how many deaths, cases of cancer, or deformities are acceptable to justify the application by SVT? Who's going to stand back and watch this 10 years from now or 15 years from now when someone is dying of cancer and it's purely because of the chemicals that have been put into the soil? You guys will back off, say, oh, it's not my problem. It's not my jurisdiction. Well, then stop now so that it won't be your jurisdiction and so that you won't be killing plants, animals, people, and ruining the planet. We've done enough to the planet. This is not going to help it.
Thank you for your comments. I don't know if Laura or any commissioners wanted to clarify any of that. I did want to mention that it's ecosystem functioning that is trying to be restored in this case, and you are absolutely correct that bittersweet, it is very widespread, but if we give up on trying to control it, it will take down our tree canopies.
I can say more too, Julie, when you're ready.
Yep, no, that's fine. And then
Yeah.
I believe the risk assessment, and I think Laura, you may be able to get into more of the details. The risk assessment indicated that the half-life of the triclopyr is actually pretty short, and this not similar to like PCBs, which are persistent, or mercury, lead,
or DDT or DDT or Roundup or anything
I
like
can
that.
clarify some of this. We did look at this specific. So first of all, we have quite a bit of experience working with bittersweet, SVT, and many other conservation organizations. And so we do know what it takes. And it will be an ongoing effort in terms of, as you said, with the seedlings that birds might have. We're always going to have to pull those little seedlings out. But what we're doing now is combating that existing growth that's had a little too long to get established. So that's going to be that initial challenge in the first 3 years. I think the science is clear, and in terms of our due diligence that we've done in looking at these particular chemicals and the use at this site, and it's very limited, and it's quite clear the fate of those chemicals. We're not, I don't believe, and I'm sure actually we're not ruining the planet.
That's the big unknown. I don't believe, from you and the other scientists.
I don't think it's unknown, in my opinion, based on the risk assessment. I feel very confident about that. And I don't think that, as I said, I think that risk assessment and the due diligence we've done on the research is quite clear.
Okay, I'll take the next public comment. Kristen Ferrante. You state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ferrante, 200 Wickham Ave. So as an abutter, I'm extremely against the use of chemicals on the property that surrounds my home. I run a large family daycare. My grandson, whom lives with me, was just diagnosed with autism at 18 months old. As far as speaking for my families of my daycare, that the reduced drift exposure of these chemicals is really not acceptable, because it's chemical exposure and you can't control the wind. I feel the overuse of chemicals, whether it be on the food or land, should be a big concern for our growing children and the growth of our town. We are exposed to so many chemicals every day that our youth and their children will be paying the price. Pesticides are not like medicine for the land, as Laura suggested, and we are learning more and more adverse impacts of these chemicals as time passes. So I'm very much against these chemicals and them being used. And as like the Stevens said, I abut this land. I have bittersweet and I have evasives growing all along the Sudbury Trust border. Okay, I'm not using chemicals on mine. I will try to get at them in my time that I can to remove them. But guess what? I'm a very busy person and I'm not going to be able to do that. So by using chemicals, I've got it all along my yard. It's going to just travel on over. I have a mother-in-law who has been fighting lymphoma for a few years now, and watching what she has gone through because of the chemicals that she used sparingly, not a lot, in her garden over time. And so I, as an abutter and a taxpayer, would really like to be heard. And so, and I'm more or less a voice for the children and their children, because you put these chemicals in, you say it's, the half-life, it's not, it's getting into our ecosystem. It is getting into us. We are already immensely invaded by chemicals. So I'm really, really against the use of chemicals on the land that abuts my property. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments, Kristen.
Okay, looks like we have a couple more. Kadra Walsh, go ahead.
Hi. So I want to voice that I fully support the mission of SVT to restore land and reduce invasive species present at Smith Conservation Land. However, I believe it is important that we keep in mind that SVT is a private tax-exempt land trust, and that a large part of why land trusts are tax exempt is because they are holding land in trust for the benefit and on behalf of the public. Obviously, public opinion is apt to vary from place to place and based on factors like a parcel's proximity to sensitive areas such as wetlands and private residences. In this situation, the public has overwhelmingly expressed reservations to the use of chemicals on this particular parcel of land. The invasive problem at the Smith property is undoubtedly large, even overwhelming. I absolutely hear that from SVT. I've lived up alongside it for years. This is all the more reasons why we take no comfort in the concept that only a little of the herbicides will be used. When talking about the scope of invasive plants on the site, a little herbicide on a lot of plants over a lot of acres eventually makes a lot of herbicides. The Conservation Commission only restricted and reduced the scope of pesticides that would be used on the Smith property, not eliminated it as the public wishes. I've heard that voiced by the Conservation Commission again tonight, the recognition of what is and is not within their jurisdiction. The decisions made by the Conservation Commission, though, last fall, therefore really just indicate a compromise by both the public and SVT, with well over a dozen acres subject to multiple years of chemical applications still. Therefore, it's a great concern that less than a year has passed and SVT is here asking for their entire original request to be granted based on the kind of work that SVT has mentioned, disappearing volunteers were able to accomplish during a pandemic year. I'm concerned that this request is also largely about access to funds designated for chemical use and their accessibility at this time. I want to voice that, again, that I fully support the mission of SVT to restore land and reduce invasive species present at Smith Conservation Land. However, I think public opinion has largely expressed that that since triclopyr has been re-reviewed by the EPA, we actually have more rather than less concerns which have emerged. Triclopyr is now considered to be a potential chronic bee toxin, with further studies such as bee ingestion studies to be called for, which is to say, and I think we need to note here, we're not talking, the EPA studies indicated that simple exposure in the environment for bees is a potential toxin to bees. They did not yet study bees eating the berries, which Laura has mentioned are not, the bees and pollinators won't be exposed to bittersweet berries because the bittersweet berries are in the canopy. That is not what the EPA was highlighting. They were highlighting the mere presence of the chemical in the environment is a potential chronic bee toxin. Also, concerns about triclopyr persistence in compost have emerged, with further studies being requested, and endocrine disruption studies don't yet exist. So with this and drought and climate change, the combination of herbicides' impact on soil and fungus, the byproduct of CO2 in the environment from chemical breakdown, are all actual added stressors to the very environment intended to be restored. So again, the Conservation Commission only restricted and reduced the scope of pesticides. Therefore, I fully support the mission of tackling these invasives, but I believe that resources could and should be put towards paid professional labor, increased efforts towards volunteer work, such as the Scouts have been doing in Littleton and other communities. And as a community, I think we really need to ask ourselves if the standard of what is approved is truly the best long-term standard for our community. I respectfully request that the Conservation Commission please uphold their decision from last fall and keep the restrictions that are merely a compromise for the rest of the property in place as they are. Thank you.
I think that the one thing I want to point out is on the studies of triclopyr, the application that we're proposing here actually is quite safe based on those same studies that Kedra is citing by the EPA.
I am concerned because that's not exactly the language that the EPA is using at all. They're talking about risk reduction. Nowhere are they stating these things are safe. There's no language saying this is safe.
The way they write the regulations so that they are used in a safe manner. That's the purpose of the regulation.
Right, but again, I would go back to saying that because some of the current standards include no studies on endocrine disruption, And the
In order
need
for something
for
to
further
be
studies
toxic,
on
it has to
toxicity
reach.
that we have to be honest about based on what is known and based on what is still being asked to be known.
In order for something to, when you do a risk
Can I interject here?
evaluation. Yes, go ahead.
Frankly, you're both out of order. Everything needs to go through the chair here. And
Sorry.
it is not our practice to have participants debating each other.
My apologies.
My
I thought I was
apologies as well.
responding to her comments.
You were, but I would prefer that everything go through the chair who can
My
moderate the
apologies.
discussion then.
We've had some open discussion on this in the past, so I think that's part of what you're seeing, Chase. But appreciate the order. Yeah, so I guess Laura, if you want, I will make one comment about risk assessments. I mean, it's just that, it's a risk assessment. So it's supposed to quantify the concentration at which there's acceptable risk. I don't believe, and I think maybe those more experienced with risk assessment than me can chime in, but EPA risk assessments don't tend to say anything is safe. It's just a matter of what concentration and unacceptable risk exists. But Laura, if you want to expand on your understanding of, or what you were going to share about the risk assessment, go ahead.
I think you said it clearly in terms of the risk assessment is looking at what's the toxicity of something, how much is being used, and what's the potential that it would actually reach the target of concern, whether it be an organism, a plant, or a human. So I think that the science that's out there, the information that's out there is really helpful in making prudent decisions.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll take, looks like 3 more hands are up. So Donald Armstrong, please state your name and your address for the record. Sir, I think you're muted.
Hi, Don Armstrong. I live at 15 Moore Lane. I just find this whole conversation strange in the sense that the town of Littleton has spent, the water department, all kinds of money, effort on Whitcomb Avenue, which is part of the area we live in, to get rid of PFAS chemicals in the Littleton water, and is using Beaver Brook water, which is clean, to add into the other water that's polluted. It just seems it's ironic we're talking about adding chemicals in the Beaver Brook area. It just doesn't make any sense. And the other thing is that I will highlight what everybody else said. I've had mechanical work done on my property. Nothing stops this bittersweet from coming back. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Michelle Gerard, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Michelle Gerard. I live in Harvard, Mass, 95 Pinnacle Road. I'm a steward, so I'm a volunteer at the Smithland and have been for about 1.5 years now. And I also work for the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions, but I did want to mention that after listening to the hearing back on August 16th, when you voted, I thought that the conditions that you placed on this, that you were considering on this order of conditions, were very wise. And I recall that one of the conditions was that you were going to ask for annual reporting, and then I think it switched to twice a year reporting after each application. I thought that was also a very wise and carefully thought out condition. I support this project because of what I've learned about how careful SVT is in its practice of using chemicals for those complicated situations. And I understand that sometimes, as you've mentioned, that chemicals are a tool in the toolkit, and they're used very judiciously. I believe that they will be used very judiciously by licensed applicators, and that I fully believe that their application will diminish each year. The other thing that I wanted just to clarify was that my understanding is that this is an order of condition. This project already has an order of conditions, so it has an expiration date, and that the first year of that order is already basically passed. So I believe you're talking about a 2-year project, and that at that time you'd be if SVT were to reapply or to apply for an extension, you'd be reevaluating the data that they've collected and reported. So I encourage the commission to proceed with approving this project and for SVT to continue its judicious use of the chemicals in the areas that are approved, and also look forward to their reporting. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment. Thought there was another hand raised, but I don't see it anymore. Do you see one, Amy? Oh, okay. Okay. Kedra, go ahead again.
I just wanted to chime in with one more thought with regards to the issue of the ecosystem at this particular site and the potential loss of the tree canopy. I would ask that we take seriously the evaluation of that concern insofar as that the tree canopy at this site is extremely new. Up until 1960, 1970, for the last several hundred years, that entire site was a field. And so I think that we just need to be evaluating, are we talking about preservation of tree canopies in general, or is this particular tree canopy one that actually has a historical significance that is rendering it necessary to preserve? Because I think that those are two separate questions. So again, thank you. And I hope that you will consider the wishes of all of the resident abutters. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, looks like we have one last straggling comment, and then that will be it. So Sandy Murray, go ahead, please state your name and address for the record.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Sandy Murray, 169 Whitcomb Avenue. I think that all of the comments tonight have been very much appreciated and on target. One thing I would like to ask as a scientist myself to Laura is what kind of monitoring and reports and measurements are you actually taking? What is going to be involved in this as far as when you treat, then what kind of information is going to be evaluated and how? It's not just, oh yes, well, we've decreased the cover and that's fine, and here's a picture. But what actually are you going to measure?
Julie, should I answer that?
Yep, please go ahead, Laura.
We will be measuring the decrease in the bittersweet. We'll be reporting on exactly the techniques that we use, and when we're using herbicides, we'll report on the amounts that were used.
Well, that's not telling me the results, how you're measuring it.
So our goal, I'm sorry, I hope I understood you correctly, but our goal is to restore over time the native ecosystem. And as Kedra pointed out, the red pines are not a native part of the ecosystem, so we will need to transition those to native plants. So what we're measuring is that change. And as I said, we'll be reporting on exactly the techniques that we're using. And when using herbicides, we'd be reporting on the amount.
I think that's all we're going to get.
Laura, are you aware of any like water monitoring that anyone has done, or has SVT done any like surface water?
The risk assessment includes some studies that were done that looked at water monitoring. There was the one in Massachusetts that looked at that. What I found very good about that study is that they were doing it in a real life situation, and they did not detect any triclopyr after several years of monitoring.
Okay, that's to the point.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, like Mr. Armstrong brought up, do these herbicides contain PFAS? And is that a real risk of it getting into the water?
PFAS.
That was Andrew. Andrew asked that PFAS question. I think.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and answer. I have some familiarity with that topic as well.
Okay.
But you can.
I just know that the PFAS was in the containers, not in the application material.
Right. So I think one instance that was reported was that for the Massachusetts mosquito control program, there was PFAS constituents in the spray. It wasn't the pesticide itself, but it was in the spray. And we're finding PFAS in all sorts of things. I think we've asked, this was probably a while ago now, just to verify. And I think that's actually where that question came from. We did ask SVT, I think a year ago now, to verify with their supplier that, the herbicide would not contain PFAS. Although I might be thinking of somebody else. So if that's not the case, it's good to get verification that your supplier is not, they've verified that, PFAS are not in the chemicals that you have, or the herbicides, or, or the containers, because it can happen. And then just, the clarification, the wells that Littleton had to take offline were the spec pond wells for PFAS. Whitcomb Ave is where the treatment system is being constructed. Although I recognize PFAS are ubiquitous and or not anecdotally, but some sites that I have experience with in New York, the regulators there are finding that residential septic systems are contributing levels of PFAS that get us above our limits. So I guess just a sidebar on PFAS. But back to the sampling, I am wondering if we can maybe ask SVT and the water department and LCT to, see if there's some sampling that could possibly be done that would be appropriate in this situation. I'm not sure what you sample for, since the half-life for triclopyr is low. Would it be the daughter products? And I'm really not familiar with what you would ask the laboratory for, but I think it's worth
Julie, and I gotta disagree with you here. Short of doing a comprehensive study, which I think is way outside of our scope to request.
Yeah.
What does one sample at one point mean? If it comes back.
I wasn't thinking one. I was thinking more like a few.
But
in locations,
again,
it sense.
In what other scenario have we asked anyone to conduct a science experiment?
Quite a few, actually. The Amazon.
When the literature has demonstrated it.
Yeah. we have definitely asked other sites to collect samples, but they're for, you know, the more standard constituents, and it's in conjunction with the water department. So that's why I said explore, because I don't know what to ask for in this instance. So that's why I said explore. But I was not envisioning one sample at one location once. I was thinking, I'm just looking at the aerial, although then I guess site access could be an issue, but it's just a thought.
May I respond?
Yep, please do.
We did investigate the potential to do some kind of water sampling. We contacted the state folks who do that type of work, and they said that it didn't make sense to do it here based on it would be, they just felt like because of the nature of what we're doing, there wouldn't be anything to detect, and they really didn't think it would be worth even trying.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think just again, looking at the properties where you have access, you know, we would need to look downstream somewhere that the town had access anyways. So it could be difficult, but, you know, non-detect is also information. But in general, I'm not aware of, you know, comprehensive sampling programs for triclopyr or daughter products. Okay. I guess, do any commissioners have any further questions or discussion? Or Amy, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add. No.
Can I ask an administrative question before we wander off? Is there a reason not to include the Zoom URL in the agenda?
It is in the
It is not.
It's in the printed agenda, if you will, but it didn't make it into the agenda that's on.
The printed agenda at the town hall?
If I can finish, the printed agenda that you all got emailed by Laura, and then I had sent to you this evening as well by
Yes.
the state.
Two things relative to that. Laura said for the last meeting, she was going to send the agenda with the URL, and she didn't. So that's why we all missed it. The second thing is that agenda was attached to an email that we got last week that had 6 other hyperlinks in there for one thing or another. So it was kind of buried in the noise. So the other boards put it on their agenda by and large.
Okay, so are you talking about, because that's how I connected tonight through.
I understand. You had it. We didn't.
Okay. Through our agenda. It was in that.
That's why I happen to have Amy's and Andrew's email addresses in my Gmail account. So that's when I sent out the panic email that said we don't have it.
Okay.
Yeah, for better or worse, the Secretary of State requires municipalities to do physical posting.
I understand. Well, so
can I finish? And then a town can opt out of that and do it on the web. Littleton is not one of the towns that have opted out of
Okay,
that.
so if they posted this,
please let Amy finish.
It is usually done, but you know, I'd say 90% of the time it is done, but it didn't happen this time.
Okay. And I do want to point out as well, you know, that SVT, in recognition, that the interested public was not at the meeting, voluntarily reposted the meeting so that, and basically is rehearing and, rehearing the meeting, and we support that approach. It's really important, that, this is that the public is involved, who want to be here. So I hear your concerns. I think if there are ways we can, somehow improve upon that, we can take a look at that. because it is important, as evidenced by, Sudbury Valley trustees, paying to renotice the hearing and having the hearing again. But I do take your comment seriously.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot easier for people if it is on the website rather than physically over at town hall. And ditto, that's the reason I try to email the agenda around to all the applicants as a courtesy, so they have it directly also.
Okay. So we'll get back to the hearing. So if there are any comments or questions by commissioners, please go ahead. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I do have one comment, Julie, and that was that several weeks ago we did condition this, and I think we should be clear. I would still fully support those conditions. I think that the additional conditions that we applied were important. As one of the members of the public had mentioned, reporting requirements and so forth.
And I can read that condition back to you all if you want it.
Okay, that's what I was going to hope to elucidate is what those conditions were. Because I don't remember every specific, I'm afraid.
And it sounds like maybe you also want a condition that SVT check with a supplier about PFAS in the herbicide. So I'll add that, but right now, condition C20 is seasonal updates shall be submitted to the commission, providing information on what tasks have been accomplished and what anecdotal results are noted. A minimum of once annual report shall be submitted to the commission during the years of controls occurring, with greater detail on observed results of mechanical and chemical control efforts. At the end of the project, a certificate of compliance shall be requested, and that request shall include a summary of the entire project and assessment of its success. So sort of informal, seasonal, and a more formal once a year, basically.
For the PFAS in particular, could we put a condition in there that says no substance or application process shall contain PFAS? Is that possible, or?
No known?
Well, that's, yeah.
It gets at the same thing. Either have the supplier confirm it or just say.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this. I think we did this with the railroad. We did this with another project really recently.
Browns Woods and the railroad. Yeah, both of them.
To verify. So I would say, using the same approach that, verify and document.
You can make it a condition that before the first application that's be confirmed with the supplier that it's not present.
And documentation of that confirmation is in the first annual report, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, I support that.
We also require it prior to any application taking place, in addition to the annual report.
I was going to do both, yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And then all the other conditions are basically the standard conditions.
Okay. Any other discussion for the conditions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to issue an amended order of condition to the Sudbury Valley trustees for the herbicide control of the Smith land and include the conditions aforementioned.
Second.
Roll call vote. Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase.
Chase Gerbeck, aye.
Brian.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie.
Julie Rupp, aye.
Myself, aye. All right, it's unanimous.
Great. All right. We got, geez, 8:51. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Laura. Have a good night.
Laura.
Thanks, everyone. I'm already moving on to the next. All right. So public hearing notice of intent, Lake Mattawanakie Association Private Way, Mass DEP number 204-920, maintenance of existing private boat ramp. So who's here for this one? Oh, Mr. Huffnagel, I think you're muted.
I apologize. This is my first Zoom meeting. I know everybody would say, how's that even possible in this environment?
That's okay. We're here for you. That's fine.
All right. So, Amy, are you able to put the proposal up for me? Oh. Can you hear me? Oh.
Yep,
Yeah,
we can hear you.
All right.
Sure which one to start with.
Yeah, we'll just, whatever you put up there, I'll just go down them. So what we're looking to do is replace this existing boat ramp. It's through the years. I think this one's been here for about 30 years. You can see in the left-hand side of that photograph over here where it's raised up about 1.5 feet, and it's on quite an angle. If we go to the next photograph, you'll see in the water where the edge is all broken up. And that's just happened through the years from, I think, the winter and ice and the snow. You'll see here on this end of the ramp that it actually sticks up on the left-hand corner there once the water goes down. So it drops from the ramp down to the lake bottom. It drops about 6 inches where the concrete falls. So what we'd like to do is take out this existing ramp and replace it. Can you scroll up a little bit, Amy, on that photograph? Oops, I'm sorry. Did we lose the photographs?
I was going to switch back over to this.
Okay.
But do you want me to go back to the photographs?
Yeah, if you could, you go back to that photograph.
Maybe.
Or if not, you can just switch to, we can always come back to that if we need to.
Can you see those?
No.
Mr. Huffnagel?
Yes.
This is Anna Mayer. It looked like part of this ramp was asphalt and part of it looks like concrete. Is that correct? Yeah, this part looks like asphalt. So
Right.
is it a combination where, so the asphalt transitions to concrete
Yeah,
before it gets to the water?
Yeah, good question. The asphalt comes down from Mattawanakie Trail from the road. We are only talking about digging up the concrete and replacing it with concrete blocks, if you will. The asphalt will just be, just be graded there maybe some crushed stone in some of the places. But we're not talking about doing any asphalt or, I mean, some of that may get removed, but just a little bit, I suppose.
Sorry, so this is a public access, not your private boat ramp, or?
It is a private boat ramp for our association.
Okay. So do you, I mean, on the beach at Long Lake, there is a place to rinse off your boat before putting it into the water. Are you planning on adding, you know, any of that type of improvement to this boat ramp?
That has not been brought up. So at this time, it's not part of the plan.
I would recommend, with the spread of invasives, this is the main way invasives have been spread throughout Massachusetts. So I would recommend putting in some ability to cleanse a boat prior to entering the water, and cleanse it so that there's a tiered way of so it's actually percolated through the groundwater before it gets to the water.
Sure, with some crushed stone or that sort of thing underneath it, so it can drain properly without getting into the water. We'll have to take that under advisement and take a look at it, certainly. All right, Amy, you want to scroll down to the next photograph? Keep going, keep going, keep going. This photograph here, it's hard to tell, but that shows how low the water level was last year in November, once the drawdown had reached its lowest point. And you might be able to see the edge of the concrete. It's up about 10 or 15 feet from the water level. So I just want to show you that so you can see that our work, we don't plan to do any work until the drawdown has reached its lowest point. So we will not be in the lake or affecting the lake in any way when we do our work. Okay, other photographs, Amy? Anything else? No, just some more shots of the, yeah, again, that's the low water level, just from another angle. Can you put up the proposal then, or the diagrams, Amy, possibly? Okay. So that diagram there, you'll see the asphalt, as you were asking about, the hot top surface. Then the existing concrete pad is the dashed lines. It's currently 15 feet wide by 36 feet long. And the new pad that we want to put in is 12 feet wide by 30 feet long. If you can scroll down a little bit more, Amy, because I can't see the lines there. Like the high water mark and the low water marks. If you can just scroll down a little bit further. Okay. So what those marks are, the MHW, that's the mean high water mark, the first line. That's as high as the water gets, which has been a lot this summer with all the rain. The next line, it says MHW, that's the median. That's where the water line usually is. The next dotted line is where the low water mark usually is. And then the other line, the dotted and dashed line, shows where the drawdown approximately is. And so you can see the locations of the pad, existing pad, and the pad we want to put in place. Amy, do you have the photograph of the, or the diagram of the ramp that's on the Nashua River in Groton? Right there. So this ramp is, as I said, on the Nashua River in Groton, right off of 119. I went and took a picture of that just to give you an idea of what we're thinking about doing, something similar to that. The horizontal, I guess, concrete sections in the middle is what we plan to do. Those do bolt together. And at the river there, there's 2, 4, 6, there's 8 exposed concrete sections there. There's another 12 of them that go out underneath into the river. We don't plan to go that far out, but just to give you an indication of what they have there. So what we're going to do is something similar to that. And if you go to the previous slide, Amy, this shows you the what we're thinking about doing. And I guess
Mr. Huffnagel, while we're taking a look at this, Amy, would you please scroll down to the photograph of the one on the Groton River? Thank you. Are you proposing, or is it necessary to install when you place these infill in between the concrete, or is that something that just happens over time? And if you are proposing to use infill, what do you propose to utilize there?
Yes, we would be using some stone in between there. We would be filling it in. We wouldn't just let it occur naturally. And it'll be some small aggregate stone so that erosion won't take place, but yet the water, the runoff, or whatever that runs off there would seep down in through the soil and not directly into the lake.
One of my inclinations here, and Amy, if you can help us keep track, it would be helpful. I very much would want you to use washed stone of some sort for that.
Okay. Yeah.
So that we're not introducing a lot of fines that then disperse as water runs through it.
No, that makes complete sense. Yeah.
And that should be fairly straightforward from your supplier. Just specify that it's washed material.
I would think so. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's this was other questions. That's what we're proposing to do. And
how are you going to dispose of the concrete? Like, are you going to pile it on site, or are you going to haul it off?
No, it will all be hauled away to an appropriate location that will accept it.
How are these being installed? Transported and placed?
Yeah, with like a backhoe or some piece of equipment of that sort. We have a couple excavators in the neighborhood who have equipment that would the concrete slabs, if you will, would all be delivered and set off to the side. We'd pull up the existing concrete and haul that away, grade the area so that we don't have that big slope, which will prevent erosion. There is erosion there right now that didn't show up in the photographs off to the side of the existing ramp. So we'll grade it so it's a little more level, because right now it's not. And then we will put some crushed stone down, washed stone as that was suggested. We will put the concrete sections on top of that, and then we will fill in between.
maybe usually we ask for kind of a construction sequence for this sort of project because it is so close to the water, and you don't want after you grade it, you don't want much time to pass before you actually put the concrete down, or else you're going to have loose soil ready to wash into the water.
They've given us that.
Yeah, good point.
It's in their packet.
Yeah, there is a page that explains that we plan to accomplish all this within a day or two, is what my understanding is. Right there. It's kind of our schedule of what we plan to do.
Rich, am I correct in my understanding that you're not planning to match the existing grade of the ramp that's out there? You're going to make it a shallower slope?
Yes and no, because there's a high side and a low side. So we will grade that so it's level in that regard. The slope going down into the water will remain the same, which is a pretty mild slope. So there's not a lot of...
Yeah, that was my primary concern, so thank you.
Yeah.
Have you talked to their contractor at all about like avoiding doing this work in the rain?
No, but we can.
Just, again, concerned because you need to grade, pretty much right up to the water's edge.
Yeah, and we would put the appropriate hay bales or whatever is necessary or, required to keep anything from running into the lake. And as I said, with the drawdown, it's probably we'll be 10 feet away from the water approximately. So, and we'll have hay bales there. So but I appreciate your concern. Absolutely.
Sorry, did you say 10 feet away from the water?
It's a guess because it depends on the drawdown at that time. We have some historical ideas of how far the water goes down when we do our drawdown.
Okay. I'm looking at your picture at your scale. You have it at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
I didn't see the scale in your drawing until just now. So that makes more sense. Thank you.
So is your intent to do all this work out of the water?
Correct. Completely out of the water.
And I would think I would condition it that way, Mr. Huffnagel. I understand, you fully expect the drawdown to give you plenty of room. I would not be inclined to condition this such that you could do it this year regardless of water conditions, but rather do it when water drops to a level that would allow you to do all of the work in the
I think we can agree to that without any problem. I don't think we would be getting to it this fall anyways. Probably wouldn't happen maybe till next fall because that's the best opportunity. Once the water's down and we know it's down, and we've got a couple days window without any question. Of course, Julie, you mentioned about the weather. Yeah, if it's raining, then the water level's coming up. So we wouldn't want to necessarily be doing it at that time anyways.
Is that drawdown a pretty standard yearly drawdown? It's the same
yes.
level every year? Yeah.
Yes, and actually with the work that that is being done, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on our other committee on the lake, but if they get some approvals and so forth, the drawdown might even be more successful and further down this year and years going forward than what it's been. So, and if the water level wasn't low enough, we wouldn't do the work because we're not going to do it in the lake.
Your sequencing mentions barriers that you're going to be using to prevent erosion into the lake during the project. What barriers are you talking about?
I think, standard hay bales, that sort of thing that are used at construction sites. lining up along the, just preventing a barrier between our work and the water, the lake.
Okay, usually we like that on a plan, like the location of your barrier and what it is.
Okay. We can.
Yeah, I think that's a good tweak to the plan, Anna. I also would think that on this plan, we would want you to show us where you would stockpile material. I'm presuming that something may be delivered ahead of time or something like that. That is, you won't be, not everything will be live loaded, either offloaded or loaded. So to the extent that you're going to stockpile any materials, we would want to know where, and we would want to ensure as well that those were surrounded by erosion control.
Okay.
And we're talking plan, then I have one other thing. It seemed, the one thing I'm hearing is that the limit of work sounds to be kind of fluid. I'd like to see kind of, this is as far as we're going to go type thing, and not, oh, this might have to go, this might go. I just don't want to see you guys go out there, start working, and be like, oh, let's just keep going. We're here. Let's keep pulling up asphalt or something like that until you're up to Mattawanaki Trail. So I think a defined limit of work on that plan would be helpful.
Yeah, what I have on there is just to remove the existing concrete slab, and that's really our plan.
Okay.
So that is the limit.
Okay.
And we'll stick to that.
That's good to know.
And if you can, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you can look into some designs for a rinsing area, and I'm not sure if you have access to water here, whether or not you'll be able to have people rinse off their boats, but
well, that is a concern. There is not water on site. Maybe we make within our association, we could, put in some rules for the boat ramp that, your boat must be washed before you put it in, type of thing.
Yeah.
We could do something to that effect.
Do you have volunteers or anybody that spend time on the weekends kind of watching people go put their boats in and kind of look for invasives at all? I know
no,
places do that,
because most of the time, obviously it's just our neighbors, and we put the boats in the spring and we pull them out in the fall. There's a few neighbors that don't obviously live on the lake that put their boats in and out as they use them. I would, from my experience, I'd venture it's half a dozen to maximum maybe a dozen boats total, but not all at the same time. So there's not a lot of activity there most of the time, obviously, maybe in the afternoon or evening and in the weekends. But we don't have anybody that monitors it other than the gate is locked and only association members can use it. So we do have some control over it.
Yeah, if you could put a sign, some sort of sign there, requesting that boats be washed before they be brought in, that would be helpful. Not a guarantee, but
right,
nothing.
But it's something, and I think I personally haven't seen them, but I've heard that at other lakes, bodies of water, there's signs there saying to wash your boat.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately usually pretty innocent, and people aren't just aren't aware. But it can be a major water quality issue.
Absolutely.
For lakes, and necessitate herbicide treatment and
drawdowns.
Yeah. It is a concern.
Yeah, we would definitely make up a sign. We have signs.
Even putting a checklist about what parts of the boat particularly they need to check for bits of plants, like the propeller.
Sure. What I'll do is I'll look and find what state you know, what the state puts up as far as signs and things of that sort, and
Yeah.
go off of theirs.
Okay.
So I'm not as concerned about this ramp as I would be if it was a public boat ramp that was heavily used on weekends, as opposed to this ramp that, like gentleman said, boats probably go in at the beginning of the season, taken out at the end of the season, spend their days in the lake. But I do agree with the comments that you guys have made, and I do agree that at least having signage explaining to the public why it is important, I think is a really good thing. And I would also encourage, I'm not sure if that gate gets locked after every user goes in there, if at times it gets left open.
Yeah, I would say 99% of the time it's locked. Anytime I go by, I use the lake quite a bit, and I'm over by that boat ramp in the water on the lake. I've rarely seen it unlocked. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And we instruct our community members to, if they walk by and they see it unlocked, to lock it. So we try to keep a pretty tight control on it. I think we do a pretty good job.
And I'll also throw in right now, the DEP hasn't issued a file number yet. So you wouldn't be able to close tonight anyway, but it sounds like it gives you time to add some information to the plans.
Yep.
You don't have a number? You have a number on the on the agenda, Amy.
Oh.
Look at that. That's 920. That is not the number.
I mean, again, if they didn't plan to do this until next fall anyway.
You know what?
there's no-
920 is SVT.
I saw that was the same
Oh, it is.
number.
Yep.
But I didn't know.
I was cutting and pasting.
There you go. Yeah, we didn't think we'd be able to get to it this fall anyway, so we're waiting on a state as well.
I have one other site question. Do you know, it looks like the asphalt, it's been there a while, it's a little patchy. Do you think there's asphalt over the old concrete?
No.
Okay. And
no.
Okay. And I guess if we requested the limit of work information a little more clearly anyways, so that would be an opportunity if you had identified it to get that on a plan. But just curious, sometimes that happens.
Sure. No, I'm pretty sure it's not, I guess, yeah. Once we pull up the concrete, but from what I can see, one starts and the other one stops, the other one starts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. So it sounds like we need to continue this hearing. It's the next meeting Monday, October 18th. Okay. All right. So we have town meeting in October as well. So hopefully we'll have a file number by that date. And I guess if not, we'll just continue it again. But you want to make the updates to the plans that you heard here based on the comments.
Sure. Okay. Areas. So a couple things I have notes here for is the area where we're going to stockpile materials and proper barriers, erosion barriers, or if you will, showing where we're going to put the erosion barriers on the plan between the project and the lake. That the stone we use will be a washed stone, and signage / a checklist instructing boat owners to make sure their boats are washed and cleaned. Is there something else? Is there anything else I missed? Anything I missed?
The limit of work, just making sure it's a little clearer.
Okay.
Putting, in addition to just the sequence, if you could put the timing in that sequence as well, and that you know that it's going to be over 1 day or 2 days.
Yeah, the contractors said that they plan to do it in 1 day, but I will put that down. You know, they plan to, we'll have the concrete slabs delivered. They'll be setting on the side. We'll pull up the concrete. The guy will haul away concrete. They'll be grading the ground. When the guy comes back with the truck, you'll have the crushed stone, washed stone that will drop in place. They'll put the concrete sections in place, bolt them together, and put the stone in between them. So they seem to think, a day, half a day, or a day's work is what it would take. So, okay.
Okay. That sounds like you've got some good notes. So
yep,
we will hopefully see you on the 18th with a file number.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Moving on. Oh, oops. I scrolled too far down on my agenda. All right. Is Grimes in tonight, Amy?
Yep, Mark Slager's here.
Okay, great. Should I open both hearings or one after another?
Well, maybe open them both at once, just
okay.
So you're covered, I guess.
Okay.
But we'll try to take them one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do them in an organized fashion, but just in case one applies to the other. So we'll open the public hearing notice of intent, lot 4A, Grimes Lane. No DEP file number yet. And then also open the continued public hearing notice of intent for lot 6A, Grimes Lane at the same time. Okay. And we have Mark. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go.
We
Go ahead,
ready?
Mark. Thank you. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Did you need to read a public notice? Because it's the first hearing for 4A. I don't know whether some commissions do, some don't. Okay. That's fine. All right. Good evening. I'm Mark Slager from Allen Engineering, here on behalf of Grimes Land Investments, LLC. This is the first public hearing for this particular lot on lot 4A on Grimes Lane. The commission has been out there recently reviewing the wetland delineations. In this particular lot, my understanding through Maureen, there's the wetlands that's located off the property to the southeast. The commission didn't have any issues with that wetland line. What we're proposing is a new house with a septic system. All of the work, with the exception of a small portion of the grading for the septic system, is going to be outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. And if you'd like, I could share my screen. I have a colored copy. Make it a little bit easier to read.
Yep, please do. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, so down in the southeast, I have the green line is the edge of the wetland area, and then the red dashed line in this location is the 50-foot no disturb, and then this long dashed red line is the 100-foot buffer zone. The blue line represents the straw wattles or the silt fence and the silt socks that would represent the limit of work. And then we up in the northern part of the site, you can see the proposed house and driveway, which is well outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And we have the septic system down here. We had shallow bedrock in in one of the holes here, and there was some outcrops or boulders at least that looked like outcrops up in this area. We did have good testing in these two locations, as well as these two locations where we're showing the primary. In the field, the health agent, Mr. Garaffi, recommended that we put the septic system in the lower section rather than on this section, just to keep it further away from some of the shallow bedrock that we encountered. So that's what was done here. I've also located a stockpile area for all the soil that's excavated during the construction of the house. And with that, I'll turn that over to the commission for any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, did you by any chance do the overall plan that we'd asked for in the of Marine?
No, I don't have that. I can email it to you tomorrow. I know we can't close a hearing on this one anyway because we have no DEP file number.
Yeah, if you could email that in, that would be really helpful.
Yep.
Anything else, Amy?
Well, just, I'm constantly getting these lots confused because this is the one with that wetland, Carl, where I thought we did not approve that line. We were talking about potentially a third party review, look at it because it's a wet meadow. I'll try and pull it up too.
Let me see if I can pull something up.
Okay,
I think I have to reshare my screen.
We can see the overall.
You can see the overall here?
Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 houses.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We can see that.
Blow it up a little bit more. So it was my understanding that the wetland line in question was the lot in the middle of lot 3A, rather than this projection that goes onto the southwest corner of 3A. I thought it was over in here more that was in question, but again, I wasn't there, so I have to go by what Maureen told me.
I thought it was both of them, and Carl, let me know. The one over 5A, we agreed with, there's going to be one flag moved on that wetland.
Yeah, on 5A, I did move the
6A.
flag.
Yeah. But on 3A, I know that the easternmost wetland started raising issues, so I thought that we had one of that little guy looked at the same time. I frankly can't remember.
Yeah, yes, we did, Amy.
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
It's a really difficult delineation. There's wetland and upland plants all mixed out, and the soil have been.
It was very difficult delineations to do wet meadows, and what I was shown by the consultant, what just didn't I wasn't sold on from what I saw in the field. Just looking at the wetland indicators that I look at, vegetation, soil, and hydrology. It wasn't clear cut in my mind. I didn't feel comfortable without. I recommended having a third party come in. Especially someone that's knowledgeable in wet meadow delineations, more specifically.
Do you have a consultant that you typically use? How is this process going to work?
Well,
I don't actually. Maureen did not throw out any names.
No.
The only ones that I threw out were possibly Oxbow or maybe Chuck Karen.
Or if those are two good people, or if you have someone you want to choose that knows wet meadow delineations.
The only other one that I'm familiar with is Brian Butler over at Oxbow.
Right. Maureen mentioned, I think it was Mary Rimmer also.
Yeah, and there's Scott Smears, I think, is another guy over there
at Boxborough. Yeah.
How would we contract them directly just to eliminate some of the paperwork, or would you rather? How do you think that should work?
That's up to the commission, but I usually do prefer that you guys contact directly, though we'd have to approve the scope. The commission would have to approve the scope, or the commission can direct me to approve the scope. And if we've got 2 or 3 names, you can also see who's available.
Okay.
To Carl's point as well about delineating a wet meadow, I would want to be comfortable with their capabilities to do a wet meadow. And to be perfectly frank, I'm not in a position to evaluate those credentials, but I think the commission in general would want to see those credentials and get comfortable with the fact that they were experienced with that particular flavor of wetland.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Chase. And I had done the site walk prior to the flags. Is this the area where some test pitting had been done?
There was some soil test pits done up in this upper corner of lot 3A.
I thought there was some test pitting that was completed a lot closer to the tree line.
I think we did see the test pits for 4A, Julie. I think those,
Okay.
Because that was on our way towards where that wetland meadow is.
Okay.
Wet meadow is.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we didn't quite get that far that day. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. I'm better oriented now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I guess I will get in touch with Oxbow and have them get in touch with you. Would that work? Or would you want to see like our?
Yeah, let's start that way and see if they can meet your schedule.
Okay.
No, before we go down this path, I think we're going down this path in any case, but since we have the broader picture up, I have a couple questions on those, so I don't want to close this out before we do that, but I don't know if we're done with this particular topic yet.
Oh, the delineation piece of it, you mean?
Yeah, the delineation piece.
Carl or Amy, were there other questions based on what you saw the latest site visit?
Yeah, we did take a look, stick our heads down into the woods, and we're okay with the line in there because it's also very far away. And the wetland between 6A and 5A, with that moving that one flag, we were okay with that.
Yeah, and I'm sure I wasn't looking at the plans that day, but I was wondering where the property line was in that area heading down to the railroad tracks.
And with the gas line easement, was it the gas line?
Yeah, the gas line easement is within the Route 2 state highway layout. And then if you look over at lot 9A, there was a stone retaining wall or a stone wall along the frontage, and then it curves. There's an angle point and it projects down this way.
So is that stone wall, does that stone wall basically delineate the boundary of the property then, or pretty close?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes. So we saw that. Yep. Okay. Good.
All right.
And so if it's okay with you, Julia, I'll jump into my questions real quick.
Yeah.
Mr. Slager, which of these houses has been constructed or is currently under construction in terms of their footprint?
Lot 7A is the first one that was being constructed. There are foundations on lots 8 and 9 that have been poured, and I believe their framing have started on those last week.
Okay.
I haven't been out to the site in a week and a half or so, so I don't know where they are, but I know we relocated the foundations on both of these already.
So you're generally working more or less from west to east across Grimes Lane.
We were working on whatever we could get permitted first. This one was the first one we could actually get passing perks on. We had some wet soils and had to delay perk tests on 8 and 9. Same thing with lot 6. We ended up getting further delayed on lot 6 and 4 for perk tests. We finally did get those, and we're still waiting to do perk tests on lots 3A and 5A. We don't have passing perks on those yet because the groundwater's been so high this year.
Okay. And have lots 4A and 3A been formally subdivided with the town?
Yes, all of these lots have been created via 1A and R plan.
Okay.
That
The
was
reason
fine.
I'm going down this pathway is that the property line between 3A and 4A,
Mhm.
there's a lot of work in the 50 to 100-foot buffer there. Whereas if you were to tighten up the property line to 4A, you would open up some space on 3A. And what I'm pushing on here is the feasibility of taking more of the project out of the buffer zone by adjusting the property lines.
Right, that's one of the things we did when we realigned the lot lines in the first place, because I wanted to center this lot line on the drainage ditch so that we would have suitable areas on each side well outside the drainage ditch. At the time, we weren't aware that the drainage ditch was jurisdictional. And then basically these lots 5A and 4A are right down to the minimum required frontage of 150 feet. And then I put the rest, whatever was left over, on 3A.
Okay.
So there's really not much I can do. I might be able to angle this in a little bit, but I don't think it's gonna really make up that much because I've only got 2,000 square feet to work with over here. So I might be able to.
When you say,
little bit.
right, because you've got it.
I have a 40,000 square foot minimum lot size.
Sure. I mean, I guess in some regard you're asking for us to permit something, but there's also a pathway to go through planning and shrink the size of that lot a bit. And I have a hard time seeing the planning board or ZBA having an issue with that. If we
It wouldn't be a zoning board issue. Neither one of them would have an issue. And I think we were at the time we did this, we weren't positive on where the wetland lines were, but we just felt that, you know, if I hold this down to the minimum and maximize the size of lot 3A, that would give us, you know, the best alternative. You know, I'll have to talk to the client on, you know, what he wants to do here, because he's hoping to get building on lot 4A soon, but that doesn't mean we couldn't adjust the lot lines later on if we needed to. And then also given the fact that
broadly what I'm asking you to explore here is, can you get us further outside of the, I mean, frankly, the corner of the house on 3A is, if the limit of work is not inside the 50 there, I would be shocked.
Right.
And I get squeamish when I see that.
Yeah, and that's why we haven't filed anything on lot 3A yet, because first of all, we're waiting for the wetland to be confirmed, but also we're reevaluating all of our options on this lot to see if they can come up with a different configuration for the house so that we're not encroaching so closely on the 50. And I'll also mention the possibility of shifting this lot line over so that we could slide the house even further over and come up with a smaller house.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but I do want to be abundantly clear that when we see 3A, if 4A has started to be constructed based on this lot line, I don't think and I don't mean to speak for the rest of the commission, but I will not be swayed by the impracticability of doing something smaller now that we've discussed the possibility of shifting that line and so forth and getting us out of the 50 altogether with some simple administrative changes.
Yeah, I think we're going to work extremely diligently to get everything out of the 50, especially once we get the final delineation pinned down, and hopefully it's not going to be too much different from this. But you know, we'll deal with that when we get the delineation.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I understand you've probably got a lot to talk about here with your client and things like that, but I wanted to look a couple steps ahead.
Sure.
This is very helpful to see the full layout.
No, absolutely. I think it makes sense, and you know, I think there is some flexibility. You know, the planning board wouldn't have any issues at all changing a lot line, so, and it wouldn't require any action from the ZBA, so I don't see any issues there. Not going to affect the location of the septic system, so you know, we'll take all of that into consideration and see what we can do to open up a little more buildable area for the house on lot 3A. Again, we just have to wait to see what the wetland line looks like.
Okay.
When we're all set.
And if you need further sort of ammunition to discuss this with your client, I would advise you to take a look at our waivers for work within the 50 and run through those with your client and frankly explain that there's probably not any waivers that we would grant for work within the 50 for residents.
Yeah, that's pretty much the guidance I received a few weeks ago when I was talking about lot 6A. So work within the 50 doesn't seem like it's any kind of a, certainly not something I should rely on. We'll put it that way.
No, I wouldn't advise you to. No. Thanks for indulging that digression a bit. I appreciate it.
Sure. Is there any more comments on 4A?
I think until we finalize the wetland line, it's a little hard to, to pin much more down. I would say you want to show your stockpile locations and erosion control and that type of thing. If they're not there, those are common comments. So we could go through that. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there's a
So we
stockpile.
can go through those exercises.
Right. So I
Just open my door.
If this delineation holds, I have about 800 square feet of work within the buffer zone. And that's it. But obviously we have to continue to the next meeting anyway, because we don't have a DEP file number. So if there's anything the commission needs addressed between now and then, it'd be good to know. But I guess that, again, a lot's weighing on the delineation at this point.
Right. And you and right. Yeah, that's the slide. You guys just talked about the lot line possibility too. So
Yeah, I don't think the lot line would affect anything with the notice of intent if we had to change that to accommodate lot 3A.
okay. Do any commissioners have any questions or comments on lot 4A before we move on?
My only challenge here would be, oh, never mind. You explained it. I was trying to figure out why our septic system is down further, but you explained that Jim had indicated that you've got some bedrock outcrop issues.
Yeah, that's his preference. And I figured I'd, do what he preferred.
It's usually the path of least resistance. And to be clear, if you were to move that more to the southwest, you would start to take a bite out of the other 50-foot buffer or other 100-foot buffer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Okay.
Okay.
Julie, if I can just jump in for 1 second. I hadn't been sure if 5 Cottage Way was coming in or not. They clearly are not coming in. So I think there might have been one person waiting to hear if there were. So just want to let Vera know that 5 Cottage Way is not going to be discussed tonight.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
You notice still sticking around. Although who doesn't want to stick around for our meetings, of course. But, okay.
Continue to October 18th.
That sound okay, Mark?
That's fine with me, yeah.
If we can get the delineation. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And a file number, right? There's no file number yet?
Yes,
I
correct.
hope we have one by then.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. Okay. All right, let's move on to 6A.
All right, lot 6A. We took the advice and recommendations of the commission and we downsized the house quite a bit. And I've also flopped the location of the primary septic system versus the reserve. That pulled back the grading associated with the septic system further away from the 50-foot no disturb. And as you can see, the limit of work is probably about 10 or 15 feet from the edge of the house, which gives them plenty of room. The grading associated with the house really doesn't need to come up to the 50. It just goes to the silt fence that I've shown at the 50, and that's more to give them some area to walk between the house and the no disturb zone. got a construction entrance here. The driveway's on the high side of the lot, further away from the buffer zone. I did look at trying to squeeze the driveway between these two trees, but it just got a little bit close, and I'd rather not try to disturb the trees because they provide a nice little buffer between the roadway and the house itself. So we came in just down in through here. So I think hopefully I've addressed everything the commission was looking for since our last meeting, and I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
Has Mark seen the our BMPs for working near trees?
No.
I'm actually just wondering if that driveway might be a little close to the tree. I think you probably have observed if you work too close to the critical root zone of a tree, it can seriously impact the health of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree not going between the trees was a good choice. I agree that would be impactful to the trees. But I would think we would want to put a condition with, the tree BMPs and protecting the critical root zones.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we haven't really talked about snow storage either.
Yeah, the snow storage would probably be over in this location.
Mm-hmm.
If I was the plow guy, I would just come up and push it off the end of here and whatnot.
So, I mean, this is how do we know that this homeowner won't just buy a snow blower and blow the snow anywhere it goes? I think it's difficult to control where snow goes with a single family house.
I think that's a whole challenge with this, Carl, not just the snow, but the lot in general, right? So much of it's within the 50. There's snow, but then there's mowing and all that other fun stuff too.
Yeah, that's the problem when you're working this close to wetland areas. The tendency is, I hate to say it, but the tendency is when you're mowing just to get the cuttings far away from you as it can. They typically wind up in the wetland if that's the closest place to put it. There's no one that's going to take away the grass cuttings and remove them off site. They're going to be going somewhere.
I guess it depends on whether or not they hire a private landscape company and instruct them to take them off the site, or whether they mow it themselves.
Unfortunately, we can't plan for that.
No,
we got to plan for worst case scenarios, and typically, people are people. They're going to do it the easiest way possible and out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's some things we've done on other projects is put notices in the deeds to the property that runs with the chain of title, and some of those conditions would be, or some of the language be, that there's an order of conditions that has conditions that remain in perpetuity on the lot, and some of those could be specifically like no clearing within the 50-foot, no disturb zone, no dumping of grass clippings within the 100-foot buffer zone, no snow storage within the 100-foot buffer zone, things like that, that you could put in the order of conditions that would remain in perpetuity. And then if that's noted in the deed, at least they can't say, well, I didn't know any better.
Yeah, I do like seeing those. It only helps so much, right? But it does help mitigate that ignorance defense anyway.
Right, is ignorance of the law isn't a good defense, so I'm told. There are some things we've done on other projects. I don't know if the commission has required or requested these before, but we've had little 4x4 wooden posts with signs indicating that it's a limit of, a no clear zone under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And we've put those all along the 50-foot, wherever the no disturb zone happened to be on the particular lot we're working on. We could certainly add those if the commission would be amenable to that.
Well, we did talk about not mowing at all within the 50 or mowing once a year or something within the 50.
Yeah, I think if we just don't let them mow at all, it's,
Yeah, I like Mark's idea better. Go with
Yeah,
what we've done
I
on the
mean-
house. A couple others just put up some signs saying no disturb beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the once a year can then turn into twice and then 3 times. Next thing you know, you've got a lawn all the way up to the wetland.
Yeah.
And the way you've shifted this house gives them room to move around it without having to mow into the 50.
Yeah, and there's plenty of room between the back of the house and the septic system, so they'll have plenty of yard area without interfering with the septic system. So, I can't imagine if it's me, I don't want to have all that much more lawn to mow. But it's not me that's going to be living there. So, I think if we can just put up some posts with signs that, keep out, things like that, then I think that'll be helpful to the commission in preserving what they need to preserve.
Just go through and plant plenty of poison ivy. That should take care of that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, there's plenty.
There's already plenty there. I came out with it after that one.
Have it on my arms too.
Yep, me too. I got it good.
Oh, did you get it after the site walk?
Yeah, I couldn't
didn't get
home
it out
to
here,
clean up
though.
right afterwards, so I had to go off to another meeting, so I didn't get to scrub it off immediately.
There's something to be said for that. That is one thing that would keep people out.
Oh, jeez. Your poison ivy hedge. And I know like across the way, we had meetings with people to brief them. We haven't really met. I don't know that we've had a lot of new construction lately, but I think it helps to meet with people to brief them on these requirements, because they can be surprised, especially with, again, we were just talking about a wet meadow and, a third party, like they are historically, they can be really, difficult to determine what's a wetland and what's not. So I think education's half the battle.
That is one of the standard extra conditions, that if the property is sold before the certificate of compliance is issued, that they need to come in.
I feel like whoever's living there should just have to come in. Although I guess is it just because we don't have a
way of tracking that.
We can't reach anybody after the certificate of compliance.
It'd be a great way to burn
Track of when the house is sold.
20 hours a week for Amy.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm not trying to track. I know.
Well, actually, doesn't the commission or Amy, don't you have to sign off on a certificate of occupancy?
Right, which is so that we would catch the first owner.
Right.
If there's a second owner, we're not, and that's, if there's a second owner, that's signs and something on the deed.
Yeah, I think that's why putting it in the deed is helpful. It's not a catch-all, but it's at least helpful to, for you people to say, it was in your deed.
It's here.
Not an excuse for not knowing.
We already have a form for that.
Okay.
That you could use.
Yeah, and I definitely did not mean to suggest that Amy you have to go chase second and third and whatever. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that job.
Well, but also, as we're moving forward, theoretically, this sort of conditions will ultimately be in the building department files, my files, so that if someone goes in there to put in a pool or something, it'll be clear there is already an order of conditions on this, which will help.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, back to this lot specifically, right? I do like the idea of making sure that we memorialize on the plan Mark's suggestion of signage of some sort. I know across the road there's signage. I don't remember specifically what it is.
Yeah,
I remember
that
having that
signage,
discussion.
yeah, I forget what the actual language is. Those signs are basically at the property lines, as well as I think in the middle. One thing I'll say about signs is they disappear.
Yep.
And one of them has already disappeared, and you can see the hole. I said, put the sign back in, and sitting in the garage. So sometimes I've also seen people, commissions ask for boulders to be buried along that line, or alternating boulders and signs, so that you just, signs are easy to move, boulders you can't move. Unfortunately, this isn't a site that has a lot of extra boulders lying around.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much extra rock they're gonna have on this. I know that's some boulders in the ground, but there's a lot of shale out there too, and broken shale doesn't necessarily make a good marker.
No.
So where are we on this?
But yeah, so if the commission wants signed, I think we just figure out, how far apart they should be, and we can work out the language.
That would be in the conditions. Is there anything, there's nothing you need on the plan, or you want me to modify the plan and you can approve it with modification?
I'd like to see it on the plan, because that's ultimately the record plan and everything.
Is there a way that I could have it in the conditions and have it have the plan updated to conform to the conditions before construction? In other words, get some kind of an approval tonight, so rather than waiting 3 weeks to the next meeting?
I'm good with that personally, a plan update to the satisfaction of the conservation agent.
Okay.
And usually something like that, we put a time frame on, like before I will sign off on a building permit.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I don't need to have no interest in making you come back in. Although I guess in 3 weeks we'll see anyway. But
if you're going to be updating the plan again, the one
I'll be here anyway, but I know the builder is anxious to get another lot to start working on.
Sure.
So this is something that you specifically pointed out on 4A, but you don't show on 6A. Oh no, it does show stockpile. The stockpile note's just almost off the page. Okay, so you got the stockpile outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Right.
I'd say the only thing I would want to kind of revisit is the distance from the tree to the driveway. It looks really, really close. And I know it, would shift it into the buffer zone a little bit, but there aren't a lot of trees out here. And
what kind of tree is it? Do you know, Mark?
It's a big guy, isn't it?
I believe it's an oak.
Something that has deep roots, maybe? No?
I don't think it might be a Norway maple, but I forget.
Oh, well,
No, I don't think it's even a maple. I thought it was an oak.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's an oak. I forget.
I thought there was like a large line of oaks out here. But if it's a Norway
Yeah,
maple,
sure.
then not that worried about it.
I only know 4 or 5 kinds of trees anyway.
Green trees, trees with pointy needles.
Yeah, ones with leaves in the winter, or not in the winter.
Well, you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to move the driveway, a little bit further away from the tree to protect the roots, I could certainly do it without, getting too much closer, or without having any work within the 50. I mean, I've got plenty of room over here, but if I have to just come around this way another, 5 or 10 feet, I don't think that's going to be a huge issue, at least for me.
Mhm.
I guess it would have to depend on where the roots are and where the tree canopy is itself.
Julie, you make that sort of determination based on the type of tree and the diameter at
Yeah, so we
height or
have,
something?
so Matt provided us with some BMPs, best management practices, in case someone's not tracking that acronym, for doing construction work around trees and how far you need to be away from the critical root zone and where that critical root zone is, depending on the size of the tree, and just how to protect it. so that a tree that you intend to save isn't, impacted because construction was done too close to it.
Mhm. Is that something that he's got produced in writing okay, somebody could email that to me?
It is up on our website, the tree protection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you want to have a look at that, with respect to the driveway location.
Mhm.
A Norway maple is an invasive tree, that we don't care really as much about.
And I might be wrong about that. I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if it's an oak, I think, and I don't know a whole lot about it, I think oak trees, they have a pretty deep root system, right? They dive pretty quick. They get deep. So, I mean,
Yeah,
if you're only talking a foot or two of excavation to kind of prep a driveway and lay asphalt, you might be okay. I think they go 4 or 5, 6 feet deep pretty quickly.
Yeah, it depends. So there's information laid out about construction in the vicinity of trees.
Is that a change, Julie, that we could have Amy approve, or would you like to see that shown on the plans and fleshed out completely before we bless it?
It is shifting the driveway farther into the buffer zone. I wouldn't want to speak for the commission, I guess, on that.
I would accept Amy's judgment on how far is too far that the driveway is shifted.
The weight's all on your shoulders.
I mean,
It's
3
always
weeks is a
been
long
all
time
on her
to move a driveway a
shoulders.
few feet.
Well, it would seem like that if you can move it 5 or 10 feet, you might not want to move it more than that anyway, and that starts giving you bad angles.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, it slopes pretty quickly. Yeah, so I think, if we can just limit it to 5 or 10 feet.
Mhm.
And if it's going to need to be more than that, we should probably talk about that. That's how I feel about it. But, certainly if there's discussion to be had, we can do that too.
And how far apart do you want the signs? And where do you want them to run? Along the erosion control line, just down the 50-foot NDA?
I would say
I was
the
thinking-
50 foot. Okay.
That's what I was thinking as well, Chase.
What was that?
That's what I was thinking as well, to run them down the 50-foot NDA.
How far apart?
50
What's that, about 400 feet there? 350 feet?
Can you scroll up? I can't see your scale bar.
There's 1
The
inch equals
distance
20 feet.
is, the lot line is 260 feet long.
It seems like maybe 4 signs. 1, 2, 3 signs.
Every 100.
Three,
That's
3 just puts 1 in the middle, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't need one up by Grimes Lane, but I would think we would want one by like where the driveway first curves and then down at the rear corner, southeast corner of the house. And then adjacent to the septic area and then down at the very bottom, like something like that.
I like that.
5 of them, I
I
think.
think that's 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, it's 4. I don't think one is needed right at the top of Grimes Lane. I think further back makes more sense.
Halfway, kind of even with the tree, I guess.
Yeah.
Halfway between the house and the street.
What is it, 200 feet all, from top to bottom?
260.
Almost 300.
I think if you put them too close to the house, they may have a tendency to disappear. So if you put one out here and then maybe one out here,
Mm-hmm.
but not right against the house, they may have a better chance of living.
Yeah. Could put a bluebird house on one of them right next to the house.
Wrap it with poison ivy.
Oh my gosh.
So was that 4 signs?
We counted 4.
4 or 5? 4.
Yeah. Anyone have anything else?
So who knows what these owners are like? The 50 to 100 foot down at the bottom corner could become lawn. Or they just mow it however they want to mow it.
I'm okay with that.
I just want to make sure I know what to expect, so.
That's a lot of lawn.
That's a lot of lawn. Well, I assume after construction, it won't have been touched. It'll still be field, but.
Yeah, it'll be pretty densely vegetated, just like it is now, because if this is the limit of work, you know, maybe next spring it'll be pretty short and barren, but I don't know, middle of the summer, it's going to be loaded with tall grass and ticks.
Oh, what about fences? That always seems to come back and bite us. I don't see any fencing on here. I mean, there's really no spot for a pool because of the buffer and the septic. I feel like fencing comes back to bite us a lot.
All right.
Anything fencing, sheds, pools, if they're in the buffer zone, they're gonna have to come back.
In theory.
Now I see 4 conditions, moving the driveway 5 to 10 feet on approval with the conservation agent, using the tree protection BMPs during construction, and putting up 4 signs along the 50-foot no disturb area with a language approval from the agent, which I guess is just 3. The signs will make it clear there's no mowing on the east side of that.
Yeah, and it should say something about like a habitat preservation or something, or, you know, wetland buffer zone, or, you know, something, like some reason, not just, you know, no mowing.
Can we condition that, Julie, that they can come back? Given that I think these signs are going to show up in multiple places here, I'd be kind of interested in seeing the language on it. Is that something that we can ask Mark to come back with down the road once they've figured out what they wanted to say?
Well, we can ask them to come back in before the certificate of occupancy, because those signs aren't going to go in until the end.
Yeah, we can develop language. I can give you sample signs or whatnot. I know we're going to need them on lot 5A, possibly on 4A, and absolutely on 3A. So we'll have hopefully all those applications in before they're ready to convey this house.
Okay. I think that makes sense.
I assume you might be motivated to have that language by the 18th anyway.
Okay. Prior to building permit?
I think showing the markers on the plan and the road moving was before I'll sign off on the building permit. I don't know, committing things, you can just put the actual language of the sign off a little bit later than that.
Okay.
but that's up to the commission.
Yeah, that was my understanding, that we needed to see the locations of the markers on the plan as well as the driveway to be approved by Amy, but the actual language on the signs, we can, talk about that in another meeting, but it won't hold up your building permit for this lot.
I think,
I'll tie the language to the occupancy permit, but you might resolve that before then.
Okay.
maybe a document that he's going to use the tree BMPs. Can we put that maybe, you have your construction sequence and one of them is install erosion controls. Could you add, install erosion controls and tree BMPs as shown, or some sort of language like that? Just, I know we're talking about it and it's going to get thrown as a condition, but it'd be nice to see that they're going to be used on the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we've certainly had issues. So it's, it's one thing for us to sit here, on Zoom and say, oh yeah, we're gonna, do this and protect these trees. And we've certainly had issues with it recently. So communication with your contractor is, as is a whole nother matter.
Contractors generally like to look at pictures and not read documents.
Yep.
Well, yeah, if you're redoing this plan anyway, you can just put construction fencing or something around that tree.
Right.
One of the first things that's going to go up.
Right, and that's what you'll see with the BMP is, some sort of construction fence or snow fencing around it. So.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Anything else to discuss on this one? Or Amy, do you have any questions?
I think you've beaten a dead horse. What do you think?
We haven't discussed. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no more discussion or questions, I would entertain. Oh, we can't. Is there a file number?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
This is
Oh, there is.
940. Yeah, it came in.
Okay. Thank you.
And you're looking for a motion to close the hearing?
Yeah, a motion for closing the hearing, issuing the order of conditions, or some other position you'd like to put forth.
Sure. I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for lot 6A Grimes Lane. DEP number, was it 204940 maybe?
Yes.
With the conditions that we've set forth in this meeting.
Second.
Who was that, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, roll call vote. Carl.
You're muted, Carl. Okay.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle.
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase.
Chase Carberry guy.
Brian.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie.
Julie Rupp, aye.
And myself, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you on the 18th.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Mark.
All right.
You too.
Thank you. All right. Moving on. Public hearing notice of intent, 153 Taylor Street. No DP file number. Littleton Water Department creation of a new public drinking water source. This was previously scheduled for 8:30. Yep.
I feel that probably wouldn't matter, but just be careful.
Just add insult to injury. How's it going, Corey?
Good. How are you all?
All right, good.
Good. Yeah, so I'll just quickly give a little bit of background, and then I'll let Nathaniel Parker from Weston and Sampson take it from there, and he'll give most of the presentation and answer most of the questions probably. But so 153 Taylor Street, as you're all aware, is a new Amazon warehouse, and when Amazon moved in, they were kind enough to donate most of the, or virtually all of the undeveloped portions of that property to the water department. And we just so happened to have a test well that was installed in 1986 there that was very promising at that time. And there was just issues acquiring the property back then. So now that issue's been resolved, and the property happens to encompass the entire 400-foot radius around that test well. So we want to move forward and essentially reevaluate the well since it's been so long since it was last tested. So that's sort of just some brief background on how we got here. I'll let Nathaniel kind of take it from there.
Hey everybody, I'm Nathaniel Parker. I'm a geologist. I work for Weston and Sampson, and I'm here representing the Littleton Water Department. I'll share my screen with a figure showing the site. This was submitted to the Conservation Commission earlier. We did add the access path today. I'm not sure that the entire commission has seen this access path. We should have submitted that earlier with the NOI, but we didn't. That was a mistake. We are proposing to run an 8-hour pumping test that is going to discharge 300 gallons a minute. This red line represents the discharge hose. This orange line represents the BVW limit, or excuse me, the blue line represents the BVW limit that I delineated on the site. And the dotted or dashed yellow line represents the 50-foot no disturb limit, and the solid yellow line is represented by the 100-foot buffer. Represents the 100-foot buffer right here. This little guy right here is where the 8-inch test well is currently located, and the green line is the access path to the 8-inch test well. The access path was made in the early and mid 1980s, and it still exists today. It does have some overgrowth with saplings and some small trees. Small trees, I really don't think they're anything larger than saplings, but in the description of the work that needs to be done, I included we may need to cut trees with diameters less than 6 inches. I don't know as though there are any trees that are 6 inches in diameter in the access path or in the area where the guys might need to work. The discharge line goes up 600 feet and discharges north of the test well into some wetlands. And again, the pumping test is going to last for 8 hours. After the pumping test is done, this line is going to be rolled up and removed, and the site will be returned to its original condition. And that's really the project.
Thank you. So I'm just noticing the bordering land subject to flooding and, kind of meandering with the wetland line to the north, assuming north is up. Do you have vernal pools in this area?
I think, no, not in this area. I think there were some off to the east. There's one off to the east. I don't have that figure up. If you would like me to get you that figure, I can certainly get you that figure.
Okay. Just interesting the way the BLSF and the wetland line on the north side of the figure meander. So I'm just curious.
Well, you remember this is also the site where the 100-year floodplain went through the middle of the pre-existing building.
That's what I was going to ask. If you took that, where you got that line from, I guess. We've had issues with how accurate that elevation is with this property.
But mostly as a overestimate.
Right.
Seemed, yeah.
This is definitely 100% absolutely uplands in here. The topography, it's almost like a peninsula, and it goes up abruptly from the wetlands limit or from the wetlands line. And the topography is definitely high. I would not say that there's flooding in here. I mean, I welcome you to visit the site, but once you see it, you'd see why.
Yeah, so I think we definitely reviewed this site at length when Amazon was in. to develop, at least those of us who were on the board at that time. So I do recall some of this. I think Amazon wanted to put their stormwater basin out there at one point, if I'm recalling correctly. But
I don't think that was Amazon. I think that was the
people
developer
before.
prior to Amazon.
Okay.
This is the, oh, never mind. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right, Carl.
I have a question. This is Anna. Is there any reason why, and maybe you mentioned it and it just, because it's late, I just went through my head. Any reason why you're putting the discharge lines so far away from the well itself? It's going through a big span of the 50. And I mean, couldn't you take a shorter route? Because it looks like wetlands are, you know, all along that western edge.
Sure, I'll explain that. Let me open up another figure. Can you all see this figure?
I think you have to unshare first and then reshare.
I gotcha. Let me stop sharing. Then I'll reshare. Can you all see this figure?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. This gets a little technical, so I apologize if it's not totally clear. This line represents the stagnation curve, and it's a hydrogeologic calculation that we made to determine the zone of influence around this well being pumped at 300 gallons a minute. The rough direction of the groundwater flow is from south to north. So most of the water that this well is pulling from is down here. And this well, in our calculation, generally stops pulling from the aquifer at about 500 feet distance. So that means if we want to get good data and understand what the aquifer is doing during the pumping test, we have to pump outside of that zone of influence from where the well is pulling. And the further we get from that zone of influence limit, the less likely we are to recharge the aquifer as we're pulling water from it. And that gives us reliable data. I came up with the putting the discharge here. If we go, the closer we get to this line, the more likely we are to recharge the water that we're pulling from the aquifer and not maybe not get as good of data as we would like. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I had a couple questions regarding the discharge as well. I think I read through, you're gonna have a silt sack or something of the sort on the end of the discharge?
Yes.
So is that gonna be an actual silt sack, or are you talking straw bales and wattle type stuff?
I think we have both in the scope. I think it's both in the NOI that we'd have straw bales and a silt sack. Just so the Conservation Commission knows, you guys are probably familiar with pumping tests and groundwater, but groundwater, when you pull it out, it's clean anyway. It's free of silt.
Yeah, so is this a bedrock well? That was gonna be my next question. It's a deep well, then I assume?
No, it's not bedrock. It's overburden.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's 51 feet deep.
That's probably sand and gravel, just
sand,
low
yeah.
fines.
Yeah.
How long has it been since this well's been developed? And,
1986, I think, was the last time they worked on it.
so I would anticipate it actually having some fines at first.
It'll have some fines, but the well was developed and it's not in a geologic formation where there are a lot of fines. If there were a lot of fines, we wouldn't want to source a new supply there. My job as a geologist is to find sand and gravel for a new water supply source. If there was clay and silt, I would be a bad geologist in this instance. There wouldn't be an option for a new water supply source.
Okay, thank you.
but the well exists. So you're just using the well that exists to conduct the pump test.
It's a simple job. We're going in, we're going to install a pump. We're going to do a video inspection of the pump to make sure it's still intact and it's not damaged. And then we're going to run an 8-hour test. And that's it. The well does exist. There's going to be no drilling.
Do you have other wells or other piezometers that you're going to be monitoring during the
Yes, there are existing wells out there on the site. I don't have a figure up right now. I can get you one of those if the commission would like. There are a series of test wells out here that are functioning, and they do exist, and we're going to use those to monitor the pumping test.
But you're accessing them on foot?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think I need to see them as long as we're not talking about creating another access road to them or something.
Yeah, no. It's all on foot. No truck, no vehicle needs to go to those. A vehicle will need to go to the 8-inch well because they need to install a pump into it.
How are you powering the pump?
Probably a generator, I would imagine. But I'm going to leave that up to the driller.
Okay. One of my concerns with an 8-hour test in a sensitive area like this is fuel storage and
Yep.
so on. Do you have plans to manage that in such a way that it doesn't impact the wetlands if something bad were to happen?
I do not.
I think we would want to think through that just a little bit, we're not talking tons of fuel, but let's dot the I's and cross the T's on that if you're going to have gasoline. Or
Okay, do you have any specifications, or if there's an order of conditions, would you?
Really, I just would want to see secondary containment of some sort.
Okay.
It doesn't have to
Spill
be,
kits.
in my opinion, anything.
Spill kit, yeah.
Yeah, spill kits. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when we did the Cobb's pumping test a few years ago, we just made sure the fuel tanks on the generators were double walled, and then we also laid some plastic sheeting underneath just in case there was any drippage of oil or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, basic inspections, like look at the equipment before you start it. If an O-ring is disintegrating, don't turn it on. Although usually the people who might be turning it on are a lot more excited to turn it on and not inspect, but that's your job as oversight, right?
Yep.
So there's basically going back to the tiny sliver of land. So, it's a tiny sliver of land, kind of amongst development and wetlands. And so it's, usually that type of feature is valuable habitat. And I think this was where we had the turtles, and Chase, by the way, this is where we had the applicant install more wells to do some monitoring. So just a sidebar on that one. But I guess the plan, to develop this as a water source, does that mean like developing out the peninsula with a pump house and a bunch of infrastructure? Like what would that look like?
I don't know what that would look like right now. I'm not the engineer who would design that. I'm just the geologist that looks at the geology and wants to run the pumping test at the moment. All this is just a pumping test. We're not talking about building anything at the moment. First, we have to get this permitted, and then we really go from there. I mean, this is a Bill Belichick thing. And I'm also not the engineer to design it, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
I feel like Corey might have some inkling of
I can just
infrastructure might end up on site.
Yeah, I can just describe conceptually. So as you're all also aware, that we're currently building the Wickham Ave water treatment plant, which is not very far from here at all. And we purposely designed that to be able to accommodate up to an extra 1 million gallons per day. So this well here may produce up to 1 million gallons per day, but it'll probably be something less than that. And the plan would be to run a raw water transmission main from this well to the Whitcomb Ave treatment plant. So that would minimize any infrastructure on this site. It would be limited to a very small pump house, if that. So we may be able to get away with a well with just a pitless adapter and a submersible pump, in which case there would be no real infrastructure on the surface, but that remains to be seen. But so worst case scenario would be a very small pump house that's, 25 feet by 25 feet, something like that, or less.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
Fun to have applicants in who've thought ahead. So what, do we have a file number for this? Is that right?
We do not have one yet.
We do not.
No.
Okay.
DEP said recently that I'm not sure if it's all the regions, taking easily 3 weeks to issue a permit. That means nobody's getting their permit on the first meeting, which is nuts.
What time of year would you propose to do this?
Not winter time. I think we would like to do it in the next couple of months, or if this next couple of months don't work, then it would have to be pushed till spring. But not winter time. We generally don't do pumping tests in the winter time.
Do we have any concern about the turtles, salamanders, and various bugs and bunnies in different times of year to do this?
A MISA has been submitted, and I think this is a natural heritage site, and we're waiting to hear back from them. So that's in the works.
I thought there was some turtle fencing at one point.
It definitely was on the actual warehouse site.
Yeah, that was on 151.
151.
151, yeah. Because
Okay.
they moved a couple out of their work area.
Okay. And one of the things we talked about a ton for 153, since they're raising the building, getting rid of demolishing the building and making it just all
So it's
parking
gone.
for Amazon, was the salt. That was part of what we had asked them to monitor. And it was just a massive parking lot and a lot of traffic with delivery trucks. So just from a water supply standpoint, obviously, that's a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, Natural
for sure.
Heritage has this flagged as something. So
Yeah.
I think, is it Blandings turtle? It's something like that.
I can't tell from Oliver. Just
I think
Yeah.
it is.
In Oliver.
But because Amazon, both at 151 and 153, basically did a turtle exclusion fence. They
Right.
double erosion controlled it.
Yeah.
I mean, how long do you think this test would, well, never mind, 8 hours.
8 hours, right?
Yeah, it's
Do you have to build the access road, or is it just?
the access road already exists. There are some saplings in the road, but the road is still there. So I think we might need to throw down some gravel at the entrance of the access road for truck and at various spots for truck stability. And I think there's been some erosion over the years. I mean, it's been 30 years, 35 years since anybody's been out there, but the road's still there, and it's just a couple of saplings in the road. But that's it.
Does anybody want to do a site walk?
Yeah,
It would be worth going down. We get a good view at their parking lot and the building and everything, because all that stuff's done. It's all
Yeah,
up.
drive right across it. You will have one other site walk to set up later this evening.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I mean, we don't have a number anyway, so we can't close. And then we'll be in a better spot, I think, to close next time.
How do I schedule, when do sidewalks get scheduled?
Question.
Yeah, so we just.
Do you guys want to do
really
something now?
Figure out when we have a, critical mass of people. Is this town land, Amy? Are we allowed to like go? I mean, we would want to set up a site walk, but.
So, yeah,
I
so
don't think,
the parcel's been subdivided, so it is now town land, but the only way to access it is through 153 through the Amazon parking lot.
Yep. Okay. Is it operational yet? Do you know, Corey?
The warehouse? And, yeah, the parking lot, yeah, it is. There's still a little bit of construction going on there, but there's Amazon vans out there as well.
Yeah, so there's definitely seen vans in the parking lot.
Okay. I haven't been by there in a while.
Almost gotten run over by like 5 of them. So.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, so my availability is definitely better midday. I shouldn't be heading to Concord that much anymore. I don't know what anybody else's availability looks like. Tomorrow's really bad.
Yeah, tomorrow's not good.
Yeah, tomorrow's not good for me, but other than that, midday is usually good.
I could probably do Thursday this week.
Okay. Midday or later, Brian?
Either one.
Okay.
I could do Thursday noonish, but I could not do later.
Okay.
Same here.
Well, it sounds like maybe we've got 3 people for Thursday noonish. Does that?
I could do that.
Yeah.
Works for me.
Yeah, looks like I'm all right too.
Corey, do you guys want to double check with Amazon that we can just get out there?
Yeah, I can do that. Did you say you could do that, Nathaniel?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, because I'm not sure that I would be able to make that. But it's not critical that I'm there, probably.
Yeah. I don't think it is. If you want to be there, we could go another time, but I think we'll be okay.
If that works best for everyone else, let's stick with that.
Okay.
The only day that I could really do it this week would be Wednesday. So.
I know I have a conflict on Wednesday at noon.
Okay, stick with Thursday then.
Okay. So to recap, so far, I need to look into secondary containment of fuel and inspection, make sure that the equipment is inspected before it's actually turned on. And we've got a site walk this Thursday, and we're going to have a continuance because we have yet to get a DEP number.
Mm-hmm. Spill kits.
Spill kits.
Is that discharge point staked, or will you be able to lead us right to it?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Is the discharge point staked, or could you just lead us right to it?
It's not staked right now. It's not marked. I can just walk you along the discharge line, and that's not a problem. I can walk the whole length with you.
Okay. All right, sounds like a plan. So we'll check that out and then continue to the 18th. And hopefully you'll have a file number by then.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and you're the next one too, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to move on unless anybody has anything else on this one. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Corey, we'll see you later.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
Good night. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, so moving on, continued discussion, Littleton Water Department regarding Cobb's Wells, conservation restrictions, and Zone 1. And I did see your email, Corey, and so thanks for that.
Yeah. So if everyone else isn't aware, we decided to hold a town meeting article from the fall town meeting and spend some additional time over the winter working on that, doing outreach and whatnot, so that we'll come back in the spring with a very similar article. Might be written a little bit more clearly by that time, hopefully. That was a pretty complicated one. I think it was 2 pages and 7 different clauses in it, so we'll try to simplify it a bit. So I don't have a whole lot to update you on besides that. I just wanted to let you know that piece of information in case you didn't already know. And I think you last time had designated Chase as sort of the liaison on this town meeting article. So it'd be great to, over the next 4 or 5 months, have continued discussions about it as we go. And I could certainly come to commission meetings as needed, but if Chase, if you're still willing to sort of work through some of that stuff sort of offline in between meetings, that would be very helpful. And we'll also probably recruit somebody from the Conservation Trust to be a similar sort of liaison, just to be able to work through everything and not be, I don't want to wait until, April and be scrambling again. I want to take the time and start going through it now this month and make sure that we address everything and everybody's on board with the plan.
Right. There'll be something to scramble over no matter what. So
there always is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's really all I had for updates on it. Unless people have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, and I also frankly wouldn't get too into it because I did tell some people that there wouldn't be anything discussed tonight. So we probably shouldn't get too far down that road.
Yep, that was what I understood too. It was just kind of an update and that it'll just be back for the spring to get a few more ducks lined up.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming in, Corey. I appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.
The DEP file number just came through.
Seriously?
Seriously, for 4A. Someone's working late for Grimes Lane 4A.
Oh, for Grimes Lane.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
End of fiscal year. I don't know if they have the same fiscal year.
No comment.
Okay. Let's see. So we just have one more?
Yes.
One more. Okay. Public hearing, notice of intent, 628 Newtown Road. Looks like no DEP file number. Did that DEP file number come in?
No.
No. Okay. Replace gravel driveway with permeable pavers. Looks like John is still awake.
Yes.
Maybe. All right, great. Go ahead.
So I think what we were waiting to do was schedule a site walk. I marked out the turnout. So if we could schedule that, then I think then continue to the next meeting where I will also have an overlay of the existing versus the proposed driveway.
Yeah. Okay, I remember that.
John, you might want to double check with DEP because 628 Newtown isn't on their radar yet.
Okay.
So just make sure they got it.
That,
I didn't hear that the area was staked until middle of last week, so no one was able to make a Thursday site walk. So
yeah.
Understood.
I mean, I could probably do like Friday midday. That I don't think it would work to tack it on to the 153 Taylor Street.
If we're gonna be going through the woods, it's not gonna be a quick site walk up there.
No.
And you're probably gonna get eaten alive by mosquitoes anyway.
Get my nets out.
Can't wait for our first hard frost. This week is tough for me in general. I got a couple sites I have to be at most of the week, and I'd really like to be able to put eyes on this one.
Well, we have some time, so you can do it next week.
Yeah, if we could do it next week, that would be much better for my schedule, although I don't mean to impose my schedule upon all of
Oh my God, that's October.
Yeah. Yeah, it could maybe be next week.
I think I'm still pretty flexible next week as well. Midday, assuming not as flexible in the evening.
Can usually do midday. Especially for something that's quick in and out like this.
This will be very quick.
You want to shoot for Monday the 4th, weather permitting? Actually, again, this is pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Pop up with an umbrella, rain gear.
I'd also say people who can't make it at noon can probably just drive by slowly and get a pretty good sense of.
Yeah, I've
I
actually
drove
done
by
that
the other
already.
day. Yeah, you can see it from the road if you take your time.
Yeah.
Does the property owner have any issues with us getting out and looking very briefly, or?
Oh, I'm here and I don't have a problem. Stay as long as you want.
Oh, perfect.
I'll get sandwiches if you leave.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so Monday the 4th at noon?
Noon.
That's what it sounds like.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Continue this to the, what is the date?
The 18th.
18th. And then as of November, John will be meeting on Tuesdays.
Okay. But the 18th will be a remote meeting.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think we'll be remote through the end of the year, probably, right? Is that
That's my understanding.
So we voted on that already, right?
Yep. You can change anytime.
4th at noon.
So all set with that?
I am, yes, thank you.
Five Cottage, I never did get a straight story, but obviously they're not coming in.
Okay.
Free Sawyer doesn't have their DEP number yet.
Oh, wow. That's, wow.
There was an issue with the checks and stuff like that, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I was say that's quite the delay. Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Kartik had a.
Oh, yep.
Is
Go
it okay
ahead.
for me to leave now?
To
Am I good
leave?
Am I good to go?
Yes,
Yes.
you're good to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, so I think the only agenda item we didn't get to was the other updates and administrative actions. What do you have for that, Amy?
Nope, and Andrew can attest, we had a great Saturday trail crew out there at Town Forest,
Yeah.
clearing out
pictures of
the
that?
Loop
Look
Trail.
awesome.
Pardon?
The photos of that looked awesome.
Yeah, they look fantastic.
Yep.
Well, you can come out to the next time. It's getting easier and easier to walk around there.
It's a lot of work.
Although next time you might be putting people to work carrying lumber, so be careful what you sign up for. And that's it. I had nothing else.
Okay.
I have one quick, I didn't want to mention it. Well, the water department was in there, but so Julie, I know we spent a lot of time with the wells at 151 and 153. So GZA or Northbridge actually hired GZA to install them.
Oh, funny.
So I've been seeing they've collected 2 rounds of data out
Yep.
there so far.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
You know
One
what
of
do you know what did they do specific conductivity or specific?
They went straight to chlorides, calcium, sodium, and hardness.
Yeah, we asked them to do analytical for it.
Okay.
But yeah, no specific conductivity. Although that would be an easy enough.
It'd be really
If
easy.
that was something we wanted to, that would be easy enough for them to have the
Field-
meters
We-
for it to do it in the field.
Yeah, we have a relationship between chloride and specific conductance.
Yep.
so we can, yeah.
Oh, I'm
Pretty
gonna tell you,
accurate.
I'm looking at it right now. You don't even need this specific connectivity to tell where the issues are. The well that's installed up on Monarch Drive, it's very obvious that it's been seeing salt. The chloride and sodium levels are very high, or relative to the other 3 wells on the property, it's much higher. So it's a legit concern, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I stand corrected on the science experiment piece.
Again, I wasn't going to say it well in the middle of you guys going back and forth, but yeah.
Yeah, our surface water data for many streams are indicating that we have levels in groundwater coming into them.
Yeah. It's an issue.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to hear Northbridge when they come in. I assumed we wouldn't hear back from them until the spring sometime, right after the winter, and this kind of goes through a winter cycle of using salt and everything on the site. But
I don't know what's in your contract. What's your deliverable?
yeah, I have to check. I didn't. Honestly, I just poked. So they wanted me to be involved with the job. They're like, "Oh, Kyle lives in Littleton," because we're out of Norwood. So they're like, "Oh, Kyle's in Littleton. Like he can manage this and be out there." And then they're like, "Wait a minute, he's on Conservation Commission, right?" So you probably shouldn't work for the regulated and the regulate who's being regulated. I was like, that's regulator versus regulated.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, you wouldn't be the first in the town.
No, but smart enough not to do it though.
Yeah. That sounds messy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not anticipating any problems, right? But who knows what could pop up? So it wouldn't be worth it if something did pop up.
Yeah. I'll
have to check on that because I forget if they were supposed to report back to you guys or not.
Yeah, they are.
I don't remember how frequent they were going to. I mean, these are basically just baseline. They did one in June, and then they just did one this month, the middle of this month.
Yeah, I think it
So
was
every 6
tapering.
months.
No, that sounds like seasonal.
They might be coming in for their certificate of compliance soon.
Yeah.
So you can't work both sides, regulated and regulator. Is it okay if I recruit conservation commissioners to come work for my firm? Because Brian started a new job today. So.
Really?
Oh, nice. I did. Yeah, I'm back working with Chase once again.
Oh, did you? Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Actually, I had nothing to do with it, but.
Does Rue have, are you guys like a mass exodus at Rue? I heard somebody else just left there too.
A little bit, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
I think there's lots of movement. I mean, there's always lots of movement in consulting.
Yeah, I said it's weird that I've heard a few guys leave from them now recently, like within a couple months. So,
yeah, and then there's I think just the general like post-pandemic dam breaking from I think lots of places. Lots of people are moving around.
Yeah, we just got 3 new people. That's what I've been busy onboarding somebody the past like 2 weeks. So I've been in the office 8 out of 10 days, something like that, in the last 2 weeks. It's been really busy. But we've got 3
I
new
heard it
people.
referred to as the big quit, which I thought was a lot of people were quitting and moving around.
Yeah. No, definitely. I probably got a decade on the oldest person we hired, something like that. I feel like like the old lady, which is fine.
It never gets better.
I actually really enjoy being the old lady on the block. I'm pretty happy with that. But
I made some office-based joke when like a printer wasn't working to someone. I was like, "Oh, we should just take it out in the parking lot and beat it with a bat." And like this 22-year-old looked at me like I had 2 heads, and I was like, "No, it's a funny movie." And they're like,
"Yeah, like, it's fine. I know how to fix that. I know what to do with technology. Like, sweet, come on over, fix this." That's funny. Well, congrats, Brian. That sounds like a good move.
Thank you very much. Chase, you're going to have to show me how to work that printer because I couldn't get it to work today either.
Just hit it with a bat.
Yeah, I think he already told you what to do.
I can't print at all. I'm not allowed with a government computer to print to a personal printer, so I cannot print anything. So I've learned to live without, or like, I have to do it at the office. I can't print anything. We're not allowed. If I like plug in a USB drive, my computer will shut down.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an adjustment. You get like the security on you and stuff. So
I guess you guys could touch sensitive stuff then, so it makes some sense.
yeah. Anyways, it's really freaking late.
Yeah.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Chase Carrick, yes.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Julie,
Julie Rupp, aye.
and myself, I. All right. Perfect.
See you guys Thursday.